Hello, everyone. Welcome back to End Times Ambience. If you want to skip this brief introduction, the timestamp will be in the first comment below. If you enjoy this video and this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you would like ad-free and early access to the broadcasts, please come over to Patreon, where we'd be happy to have you, where we're up to about 1,500 members. Today's story is based off of one of my favorite television series, as well as book series, Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire, other spin-off series, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, House of the Dragon. They're all fantastic, and I do recommend you go out and check those out if you haven't seen it. Say what you want about the last season of Game of Thrones. The ride up to that point was very fun and really enjoyable. So definitely recommend going and checking that out. So the story today is based off one of the villains in that story, the White Walkers in modern day Earth. So if you're not familiar with that particular villain, it's an ancient creature that awakens and starts out in the cold north and works its way down, wreaking havoc as it comes. It raises the dead, so you've got some zombie-like creatures, which is right up the alley of this channel. So it's a long one. It's almost 4 hours long. The first draft was actually almost 5 hours long, but I had to cut a lot just so we could have a decent sized story that I hope you all enjoy, and hope you stick around and watch the whole thing. With all that being said, End Times Ambience proudly presents the Borealis Hour. Enjoy the show.
Good evening. What follows is a story about the end of the world. Again, one does wonder when the world will simply stay ended and save everyone the trouble. But no. This time it arrives as a cold snap in Alaska that overstays its welcome by, several thousand miles. There are dead people who refuse to lie down. There are things in the sky that haven't been seen since the last time civilization needed a fresh start. And there is, naturally, a late-night radio host who keeps broadcasting long after anyone with sense would have turned off the microphone and headed south. I've always admired that kind of stubbornness. It pairs so well with poor judgment. Before we begin, a small matter of disclosure. The voices you're about to hear were generated by artificial intelligence, but directed by a human. The words, the performances, the editorial choices, those belong to someone who knew what they wanted you to hear. The voices simply did as they were told. Any resemblance to persons living or dead is entirely coincidental. Enjoy the show.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce, and this is the Evening Report. Northern Alaska is in the middle of its warmest autumn on record tonight, and the effects are starting to show. Temperatures across the North Slope have been running 20 to 25 degrees above normal for 9 straight days, with Fairbanks itself hitting 58 today. That's nearly 30 degrees above the October average. The permafrost that holds the road and pipeline infrastructure together across the north is softening. Tonight we've got damage on 2 fronts. The 12-mile stretch of the Dalton Highway near Coldfoot buckled overnight, and the state DOT has crews on scene. The road is sitting on ground that was frozen solid 2 weeks ago and isn't anymore. And the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System is reporting a section of support pylons south of Edigan Pass that shifted enough to trigger a monitoring alert. Alyeska says there's no leak and no flow disruption. Murradane is up on the Dalton tonight near the damaged stretch. Mira, what does it look like?
From about mile 175, where they've got us staged behind the cones. The asphalt here didn't crack, it dropped. You can see where the shoulder folded under itself, maybe 2 feet down at the worst spot, and there's a soft patch in the northbound lane they've been flagging since this morning. A loaded fuel tanker came through around noon and the whole road surface flexed under it. Driver told us he felt it move. The crew foreman told us about an hour ago that the subsurface temperature readings are unlike anything they've logged on this section of road. The ground isn't just thawing, it's warm. He used the word spongy, which is not a word you want to hear about the foundation under a highway. They've got a half-mile closed, and they're routing northbound traffic, single lane around it. But the flaggers told us the soft patches keep showing up further south every few hours.
And the pipeline. We mentioned the support pylon shifting south of Aragon.
I can see the pipeline from where we're set up runs parallel to the road through this stretch. There are Alyeska trucks parked along the shoulder every couple of miles. Crews with survey equipment out under floodlights. Nobody's calling it a problem, but they're out here at 8 o'clock at night measuring pylon angles, and that's not routine.
Any word from DOT on how long the road stays this way?
No. And the issue is the ground, not the pavement. DOT can patch asphalt. They can't refreeze a hillside. The foreman told me off to the side that if the warm stretch holds another week, they're looking at full closures north of Coldfoot. He wasn't loud about it. And Ned, one more thing. It's 52 degrees where I'm standing right now, October. On the Dalton at mile 175, there are mosquitoes out here in October.
All right, Miradane on the Dalton Highway tonight. On the bigger picture, the National Weather Service office in Fairbanks says this warm stretch is being driven by a high-pressure ridge that parked over the Brooks Range 8 days ago and hasn't budged. They've got no analog for it in their records. The closest comparison, a warm October event in '98, lasted 3 days and ran about 12 degrees above normal. This one's twice as warm and 3 times as long, and the extended models aren't showing it breaking. The warmth is also hitting structures across the interior. The borough engineer in North Pole reported foundation cracks in 3 buildings along the Richardson Highway where the permafrost has pulled away from the pilings. A homeowner in Two Rivers told us her floor dropped an inch overnight. The Yukon is running warmer than anything in the hydrological record. Fish and Wildlife reports king salmon in tributaries about 100 miles north of their usual range, and the Tanana is still open water well past the date it normally starts carrying ice. A fisheries biologist at the university told us the fish aren't lost. They're following the water temperature, and the water temperature is just somewhere it hasn't been before. A fishing guide out of Neenah told us he pulled a juvenile king out of a creek that's been dry graveled in October for as long as he's been working the river. Said the water felt like midsummer. That was 4 days ago. It's only gotten warmer since. 2 other items before we go. A research station on the Arctic coast near Barrow has missed 2 scheduled check-ins this week. The university says it's almost certainly a satellite phone issue. Atmospheric conditions have been knocking out sat links across the slope for days, and the department's tone was somewhere between unconcerned and mildly annoyed. They're sending someone up tomorrow to take a look. We'll follow up when they do. And separately, a drilling crew at Prudhoe Bay working a thaw zone struck something at depth today that they can't identify. The site geologist told the crew's management that the material, and this is from the field report, reads less like rock and more like a very large piece of ice that will not melt. Core samples have been sent to Fairbanks for analysis. The crew was supposed to radio a follow-up about 3 hours ago. That call didn't come. The company says it's the same atmospheric interference that's been cutting communications all week, and they're not treating it as unusual. We've reached out to the site manager. When we hear back, we'll let you know. That's where it stands tonight. Record warmth that won't break, roads and infrastructure feeling it, warm rivers, and a couple of loose ends up north. We'll be watching. I'm driving down to Anchorage this weekend, actually, going to see my sister. Haven't made the trip since July, and she's been letting me hear about it. For those of you heading south on the Parks Highway, the road's in better shape than the Dalton, at least for now. I'm Ned Royce. We'll have more for you at 11. Good evening. I'm Ned Royce, and this is the Evening Report. We're starting tonight with a story we first reported 3 days ago. The research station near Barrow that missed 2 scheduled satellite check-ins has been reached. A team from the university flew up this morning and got to the site around noon. The station is empty. Doors open, generator running, heat on. 6 researchers were assigned to that station. None of them were inside, and none of them were within sight of the building. The university team searched the surrounding area for about 3 hours before conditions pushed them back. They found footprints in the mud heading north toward the coast. No tracks coming back. We should also note that the drilling crew at Prudhoe Bay we reported on 3 days ago has still not been heard from. The company sent a relief crew to the site yesterday. They found the drill rig still turning, camp heaters running, and nobody there. That's now 2 sites on the Arctic coast in the same week where people have walked away from running equipment and haven't come back.
Ned, the search team's flight landed at Wiley Post about 40 minutes ago. I talked to one of the grad students who went up. She said the station was exactly as you'd leave it if you stepped out for a minute. Coffee mugs on the counter, laptops open, one of the bunks still unmade. She said the strange part wasn't that the crew was gone. The strange part was that there was no reason visible anywhere for them to have left. The other thing, and the search team mentioned this, is that it got cold while they were up there. Not regular cold. They flew up in conditions that should have been in the 40s. By the time they landed and walked to the station, the thermometer on the porch read 18, and that kind of drop in 3 hours in early October. The pilot said he'd never seen it.
The university has notified Alaska State Troopers, and a formal search is being organized for first light tomorrow. We're told the National Guard has been asked to provide helicopter support. Separately, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Maple out of Juneau was running a transit near the coast north of Prudhoe this morning and reported ice forming around the hull in early October. The captain described the water temperature dropping faster than anything in their onboard records. The Maple reversed course and is holding south of Point Barrow in open water. The National Weather Service is tracking a cold front that came off the Arctic ice shelf sometime in the last 24 hours. It's moving south across the slope at a speed the forecasters are calling unusual. The wind behind it isn't fast enough to explain how quickly the front is advancing. A meteorologist at the Fairbanks office told us off the record that the front is moving as if it's carrying its own engine. She said she'd never written that in a forecast and didn't plan to start. For more on what the thaw may have uncovered up north, we're joined tonight by Dr. Shireen Glover, a microbiologist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. The Prudhoe Bay drilling crew struck something in the permafrost 3 days ago, and your lab received the core samples. What are you seeing?
What we're seeing and what it means are 2 different conversations, and I'd rather keep them separate for now. The samples contain microbial material that doesn't match anything in our reference databases. That doesn't mean it's new to the planet. It means it's old enough that nothing in the current catalogs recognizes it.
How old are we talking?
I'm not going to put a number on it tonight. The carbon work isn't back yet. What I can tell you is that permafrost is a record. It preserves whatever went into it. And some of what went into the Arctic permafrost went in during periods we have almost no data on. The thaw is opening a window into layers that haven't been exposed in a very long time.
Is there a public health concern here?
That's outside my area of certainty right now. The organisms in the samples are intact, which is notable. Permafrost can maintain cellular structure over very long periods. Whether these organisms are viable, meaning whether they could resume biological activity, that's what we're testing. I don't have that answer tonight.
The research station that was found empty today is about 90 miles from the Prudhoe drilling site. Should we be connecting those?
If you're asking me to connect 2 events, I don't have the data to connect. What I can say is that the permafrost is thawing faster than we've measured before, and thawing permafrost releases what it holds. We know what modern permafrost holds. We don't have a catalog for the deep layers. That's the gap.
You said the organisms are intact. What does that look like?
Under a scope, they look like they were frozen yesterday. That shouldn't be possible over the timescales we're likely talking about, but the samples are what they are.
That cold front we mentioned is expected to hit the Dalton Highway corridor by tomorrow afternoon. The Weather Service has issued a winter storm watch for the North Slope and the Brooks Range, which in early October is itself unusual. Temperatures that were running 25 degrees above normal 3 days ago are forecast to drop 40 degrees in under 12 hours. The Dalton Highway closure we reported last week has expanded. DOT has shut the road north of Coldfoot to all traffic except emergency vehicles and pipeline crews. That stretch has continued to sink. That's where it stands tonight. A missing research team, a missing drill crew, ice where there shouldn't be any, a cold front the forecasters can't explain, and lab samples from the permafrost that don't match anything on file. I'm Ned Royce. We'll have more for you at 11.
This is KL7RQ, Fairbanks. 0140 hours, monitoring the coast search frequency. If anyone is listening, I've got traffic to pass along. About an hour ago, I had a station come through. Operator north of Dead Horse. Runs a weather relay for one of the outfits working the coastal shelf. I've heard of him before. Been hearing him for weeks, actually. Quiet guy, usually just weather reports, equipment checks, nothing unusual. But tonight was different. He came through fast in a panic, and he sounded, well, wrong. He said there were figures outside his station, standing in the snow. I asked him how many. He said he didn't know. Said they were too still. Between the darkness and the snow blowing around, he couldn't really tell if they were actually there, or maybe it was just the eyes playing tricks on him. He said they were tall, white, and then he mentioned their eyes. He said they were blue, not a flashlight or a headlamp, just blue, like there was something shining inside of them. I asked him if he was locked up inside. He started to answer, but then the signal dropped. I've been trying to call him every 10 minutes since, but I've got nothing. I know how this sounds. A man alone on the coast in the middle of the night with bad weather and no sleep. You can really just explain that away. But I've been doing these radios for a long time. He didn't sound like someone who was seeing things. He sounded like someone who was looking at something real and just trying to describe it before he lost the chance. So, for the record, 0210 hours. Lost contact with a station north of Dead Horse. Operator reported unidentified figures outside his position. Tall, white, blue eyes. I really don't know what to make of that, but I'm logging it. KL7RQ. Back to search the net. Stay warm out there.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour, KFNX Fairbanks, coming to you live from the least insulated studio in interior Alaska. It's about 12:30 in the morning, and according to the thermometer outside my window, it's already dropped to about 14 degrees. 3 days ago, it was 58, so I hope you guys didn't get too used to the warm out there, because winter is coming. The lines are open tonight. If you've got something to tell me, the number is 555-KFNX. For those just tuning in, this is the show where we talk about the things the daytime people don't want to talk about. UFOs, Bigfoot, government cover-ups, the usual. Tonight I was going to get into that Prudhoe Bay drilling story. You heard the news. A crew hit something in the permafrost they couldn't explain. Then the whole camp went quiet. The official line is atmospheric interference. The phone lines lit up. Let's get to them. Benjamin, on line 1. You're on the air.
Davos, hear me out before you go to commercial. I fly bush charters out of Bettles. I run the Brooks Range 3-4 times a week. I landed at a strip on the Alatna River this afternoon to drop off a trapper, and while I was tying down the plane, I looked out across the river. The ice was already forming, which is early but not crazy. There were people standing on it.
People standing on thin October ice isn't great judgment, but it's not paranormal.
They weren't moving. 6, maybe 7 of them, spread out across the ice about 100 yards apart, standing still. I watched for maybe 2 minutes while I finished with the tie-downs. None of them shifted, not a step, not an arm, nothing. The trapper saw them too. He grabbed his rifle.
Did he go out there?
No, because while we were watching, the temperature dropped. It fell off a table. I could feel it through my coat in seconds. The trapper looked at me and said we should go. We went. I dropped him at his cabin and flew back to Bettles. I don't know who those people were or why they were standing on river ice in the dark, but they weren't dressed for it. They weren't moving, and it got cold enough to hurt while I was looking at them. The trapper's dog was in the truck bed. That dog doesn't scare, he runs grizzly. He was flat on the floor of the bed with his ears back, and he wouldn't stand up. The trapper had to carry him into the cabin.
How cold are we talking? What did the gauge say?
The Cessna read 12 below when I started the engine. It was 28 above when I landed. Maybe 10 minutes between those two readings.
All right. I don't know what to do with that, but I appreciate the call. Torment on line 2, go ahead.
Yeah, I work pipeline maintenance out of Dead Horse. Something's wrong with the cold. I was checking a valve assembly this afternoon. Standard walk. The cold came in fast. Same as your last caller. But here's the part. I watched a half-inch wrench snap in my hand. Just broke. Steel doesn't do that. The thermometer on the pipe was reading 20 below. And the frost. I cleared a section of pipe with a heat gun this morning. Watched the frost close back over in about 30 seconds. I've never seen frost do that. It came back across the metal like it was being pulled.
What are you saying? That the frost is moving on its own?
I cleared the pipe with a heat gun, and the frost came back before I put the gun down. I know what cold does up here. This isn't cold.
Have you reported any of this?
Told my foreman. He told me to fill out a cold weather incident report. I filled it out. I don't think a form covers this one. And that drill crew that went missing. The Prudhoe one from the news? A couple guys on my crew knew them. Good operators, the kind who call in even when the radio's spotty. They didn't just miss a check-in, they're gone.
Appreciate the call. Stay warm up there. One more tonight. Gilly, you're on.
I live in a village about 40 miles off the Dalton. We're not on the road system. You fly in or you take the river. My daughter is 4.
Take your time.
Something is outside. I've been hearing it for 2 nights. I can't tell you what it is because I haven't looked. My neighbor went out last night to check on his dog and he hasn't come back. His door is open. I can see it from my window. My daughter asked me this morning why the birds stopped. I didn't know what she meant. Then I listened. No ravens, no jays, nothing. It's been quiet for 2 days, and I didn't notice until a 4-year-old told me.
Have you called the troopers?
The cell phone won't connect. I've been trying since yesterday. I called you because your AM signal is the only thing I can pick up.
Is there anyone else in the village you can get to?
8 houses. 3 of them have their lights off. They shouldn't have their lights off. I don't know what's happening. I just needed someone to hear me.
I hear you. Stay inside, lock your door, keep trying that sat phone. If anyone out there knows which village she's calling from and can get a message to the troopers, the post number is on our website. That's the Borealis Hour for tonight. I've been running this show for 9 years. Most nights it's lights in the sky and things that go bump, and I love every minute of it. This is the show that takes the strange seriously. I don't know what tonight was. A bush pilot, a pipeline roughneck, and a scared mother in a village nobody can reach. 3 callers, 3 different parts of the slope. They don't know each other. I checked. I'm Davos Pyke. The lines are open again tomorrow night. Same time. Stay warm out there.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce, and this is the Evening Report. We're coming to you tonight with what has become a developing situation across northern Alaska. Temperatures on the North Slope dropped to 60 below zero this afternoon and are still falling. In the last 8 hours, we've lost contact with Dead Horse, Kaktivik, Naduitsut, and at least 4 smaller communities along the Arctic coast. Dead Horse went quiet first, around 2 this afternoon. Kaktivik followed about an hour later. By 5, we'd lost Nuiksut, Atkasuk, and Wainwright. The pattern is the same each time. Communications drop. Power signatures on the satellite imagery go dark. No distress signal. The towns don't call for help before the signal stops. They just stop. 60 below is past the operating limit for most commercial vehicles, most aircraft engines, and most battery-powered communication equipment north of the Brooks Range. Aircraft are grounded at every strip north of Bettles. Fuel is gelling in tanks that were full this morning. Satellite phones that were working yesterday are dead. The north has gone quiet, and the reason it's quiet is that the cold killed the equipment before anyone could use it. Mira Dunn is at Eielson Air Force Base tonight. Mira, what's the military doing?
The base went active around 3 this afternoon when the temperature readings from the slope station started falling faster than any forecast predicted. I can see C-130 transports on the flight line from where I'm standing. Engines covered, nothing moving. The problem is the air over the Brooks Range. The aircraft can fly in cold, but what's sitting up there right now is past the engine certification. Nobody wants to find out what fails first. The mood here is focused. Nobody's saying the word emergency, but the ground crews are loading faster than any drill I've covered. One of the load masters told me they've been ordered to pre-stage everything that can roll, not just the convoy packages. What is moving is a ground convoy. Elements from the 1st Stryker Brigade rolled north on the Dalton about 4 hours ago. I counted at least 20 vehicles, fuel trucks, medical units, communications rigs. They're heading for the corridor between Coldfoot and Adigan Pass. I watched them go through the gate. The last vehicle in the column was an ambulance. The medic in the back waved. That was 4 hours ago, and we haven't heard from the column since it passed Living Good. One more thing. When I walked out here 40 minutes ago, it was 8 above. It's -4 now. That's 12 degrees. While I've been standing here doing this report, the clouds coming out of the north are low and fast, and they're a color I don't have a word for.
For more on the military response, we're joined by Colonel Sandor Payne, a retired Army logistics officer and military analyst. Colonel, a ground convoy heading north into temperatures below 60. Walk us through what that operation looks like.
The 1st Stryker Brigade out of Joint Base Elmendorf has Arctic certification and Arctic rated hardware. The Strykers themselves are certified to -40. What they're running tonight is a standard cold weather logistics push. Fuel, medical, comms relay equipment, moving north to establish a forward staging point where ground teams can operate.
60 below is colder than -40.
It is. The vehicles have supplemental heating packages and Arctic fuel blends rated below the standard threshold. The crews are trained for sustained cold operations. This is a logistics problem. Logistics problems have solutions. The question is how long the conditions hold, and the operators on the ground make those calls in real time.
We haven't heard from the convoy since it passed Living Good. Is that normal?
I won't get ahead of the commanders on the ground. HF radio has limitations in extreme cold, and the atmospheric conditions across the interior have been degrading communication for days. A gap in contact during a northern push is not unusual. It's expected.
Is there a scenario where the convoy turns around?
There are protocols for every contingency. I'm not going to speculate on what the ground commanders would decide before they decide it.
The cold front has now passed through the Brooks Range and is approaching the Yukon River corridor. Temperatures in Fairbanks have dropped 20 degrees since this broadcast started. The Weather Service has upgraded the storm watch to a warning for the entire interior. And the Dalton Highway is now closed to all traffic south of the Yukon River Bridge. That closure has moved 100 miles south in 24 hours. One more item tonight. About 6 hours ago, we received what appears to be the last radio transmission from a village health aide in one of the coastal communities that went dark. Her name is being withheld. The transmission is calm. She's reporting cold, loss of generator power, and asking for a wellness check on an elderly resident. Standard call. Our audio engineers looked at the recording. Under her voice in the background, there's a sound low, evenly spaced, patterned. They ran it against every reference library they could access tonight. Weather noise, mechanical vibration, seismic, wildlife. It doesn't match any of them. It's rhythmic. It sounds structured, like language, except it isn't any language in the databases. We played the recording for Dr. Glover at the university. She listened to it 3 times, asked for the raw file, and didn't say much else. That's the picture tonight. The temperature is still falling, the towns are dark, the convoy is somewhere on the Dalton. And we've got a recording with a sound on it nobody can explain. My sister called from Anchorage this afternoon, said it was getting cold down there too, said the dog wouldn't go outside. I told her to stay in. I'm Ned Royce. We'll be back with updates as they come.
All right. Listen to me. I know it's late. I know you're tired. But I need you to hear this because by tomorrow, the story's going to change and you're going to want to remember what it sounded like before they cleaned it up. Something came out of the ground at Prudhoe Bay and the United States government is trying to put the lid back on. Let's walk through it. 3-4 days ago, a drilling crew on the North Slope hit something in the permafrost they can't identify. The geologist on site, this is from the news, not for me, says it reads like ice that won't melt. Direct quote, ice that will not melt. Next morning, the crew is gone. Not dead, not fired, not transferred, gone. The equipment is still running. Nobody's there. Then the research station. 6 scientists at a coastal post near Barrow go dark. The university says satellite phone trouble. Satellite phone trouble. I checked. Those stations run iridium handsets with backup batteries rated to -50. You know what knocks out an iridium phone? Almost nothing. You know what the university sent up to check? A grad student in a rented Cessna. And what did she find? Empty building. Doors open. Coffee on the counter. Now here's where it gets good. Those 6 researchers weren't local hires. I pulled the university's grant filings. That team was brought in from outside, funded by a federal contract through DOD, Department of Defense. Why is the Defense Department funding a microbiology station on the Arctic coast? Ask yourself that, and then ask yourself why nobody on the evening news is asking it. The anchor up in Fairbanks, Royce, he talked to a microbiologist last night, Dr. Glover. She said the samples from the drill site contain organisms that don't match anything in the databases, that they're intact, that under a scope they look like they were frozen yesterday. She said that on television and nobody in the studio blinked. You know what intact means? It means alive. It means whatever was in that ice is still in one piece, and somebody in a lab coat is finding out whether it wakes up. The FAA put a no-fly box over Prudhoe this morning. Temporary flight restriction. Weather hazard, they're calling it. Since when does the FAA put a weather restriction over the same drill site where a crew vanished and a geologist found ice that won't melt? That's not weather. That's a fence. They don't want anybody looking down. And the military, the 1st Stryker Brigade rolled north up to Dalton tonight. 20 vehicles, fuel trucks, ambulances, comms gear. Ask yourself something. If this is a weather event, why are you sending armored fighting vehicles? You send snowplows to a blizzard. You send generators to a blackout. You send strikers to a fight. Somebody at Joint Base Elmendorf knows this isn't weather. The town's going dark, Dead Horse, Kaktovik, all of them. The news says it's the cold. Temperature's too low for the equipment. I'm not arguing the temperature. 60 below is 60 below. But this cold came out of nowhere. 3 days ago, it was record warmth, and now it's record cold, moving south faster than the wind supposed to drive it. The Weather Service's own people said the front is moving like it's carrying its own engine. Those are their words, not mine. I talked to a man this afternoon, retired geologist, worked the slope for 20 years. He told me there are classified survey reports going back to the 80s about structures in the deep permafrost, not rock formations, structures, organized, geometric. He said every time a survey team flagged one, the data got pulled and the crew got reassigned. He wouldn't go on the air with me. He's scared. Something came out of the ground, something that was frozen for a very long time, and the cold followed it south. I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to pretend I do, but I know what a cover-up looks like, and missing crews and no-fly zones and towns going dark and a government-funded research station with its doors hanging open. That's a cover-up. The health aide recording from the news tonight, did you hear that part? There's a sound on it. Under her voice, low, patterned, rhythmic. The newsroom says they can't identify it. I'll tell you what it sounds like to me. It sounds like something talking. Stay on this. Don't let them change the subject. Don't let them turn it into a weather story. Something is coming south, and they lost control of it. That's Mance Bolton. I'll be back tomorrow if the signal holds.
This is the Borealis Hour, KFNX Fairbanks. It's 20 past 1 in the morning. The temperature outside this studio has dropped to -12 since we went on the air, and it's still falling. I've got 3 callers tonight. The lines have been busy, and not the usual busy. These are people who sound like they're calling because there's nobody else to call. Before we start, I want to say something. I've been running this show for 9 years, and most of it's been fun. Callers see lights, callers hear things. And I take them seriously because somebody should. What came through the phones last night was different. I said that at the close, and I meant it. Tonight's calls are worse. Brianne on line 1. Go ahead.
I'm a state trooper. I'm parked on the Steesh Highway north of Circle. My radio went dead about 40 minutes ago, and I'm reaching your AM signal on my personal phone. There are marks in the snow outside my truck. Standing marks. Something was in the road about 60 feet ahead of me, and then it wasn't. The tracks don't lead anywhere. They start and they stop.
Standing marks. Like footprints.
Standing marks. 2 impressions side by side. Pressed about 3 inches into the snow. No approach tracks. No departure. Whatever made them was there, and then it was gone. The snow around the marks is frosted over in a pattern I've never seen. Not wind-blown. It looks deliberate.
Anything else out there? Other vehicles, other tracks?
Nothing. The highway is empty both directions. I ran my spotlight up and down the tree line before I called. Nothing moved. But the temperature gauge keeps dropping, and my dash lights are dimming, not flickering. Dimming, like something's pulling current. The engine's running fine. The battery should be full. I've driven this highway in whiteouts that would kill most people, and I've never called a radio show. My dispatcher isn't answering. The post in Central isn't answering. The temperature gauge has dropped 6 degrees since I stopped here. I'm going to drive south.
Do that. Drive south, and don't stop. For anyone listening, if you know troopers working the highways north of Fairbanks tonight, check on them. Their radios may not be working. It's on line 2.
I've been mapping this. Not the temperature. The blackouts. I've got a ham scanner, and I've been logging every community that goes silent with the timestamp. Dead Horse at 2:14, Kaktovik at 3:22, Nuiksut at 4:45, Atkasuk at 5:10, Wainwright at 5:38.
You've been tracking the order they go dark?
I plotted them on a map. They're not random. They're moving south in a line, and the line curves inland. It follows the coast, and then it turns toward the Brooks Range. The cold isn't spreading out from a center. It's traveling. And it's traveling in a direction. And I checked the intervals. The gap between blackouts is shrinking. Dead Horse to Kaktovik was 68 minutes. Kaktovik to Nuiksut, 83. But Atkasuk to Wainwright was 28. It's speeding up.
Or there are more of whatever's causing it.
I hadn't thought of that. That's worse. Here's the other thing nobody's saying. The temperature at each town drops before the blackout. Not during. The cold gets there first, then the silence. The cold isn't a side effect. It's the front edge. Something is behind it, and at the rate it's moving, it reaches the Brooks Range by tomorrow night, Fairbanks by the end of the week. If the intervals keep shortening, sooner. I know how this sounds, but the numbers are the numbers.
Last caller, Tormund. You called last night about the pipeline conditions. You're on?
I'm still at Dead Horse. Most of the crew pulled out today. I stayed because someone has to keep the pipeline valves on manual. The automated systems froze about 6 hours ago.
What's the temperature?
The thermometer stopped at minus 72. That was around 8 tonight. It's colder now. I know because the diesel in the backup tank has gone solid. That fuel is rated to minus 60. The sounds I told you about last night, the cracking, it's louder, it's closer. And it comes from different directions now. Used to be just north. Now it's north, east, and west. I locked the doors about an hour ago. I can see the floodlights on the north perimeter from the office window. There's something standing at the edge of the light. It's been there about 20 minutes. It's tall. Taller than a man. The light doesn't hit it right. Like the cold around it bends the light before it gets there. There are others behind it, further back past the floods. I can't see them, but the cracking comes from where they are.
Get in the truck and drive south. Right now.
The truck is outside. Whatever's out there is between me and the truck. There are 2 other guys in the bunkhouse across the yard. I tried the intercom. They didn't answer. Their lights are off. I'm going to stay put. Leave the line open if you can.
The line stays open? I don't have the right thing to say tonight, and I'm not going to pretend I do. A state trooper with a dead radio and marks in the snow that don't go anywhere. A man with a ham scanner who plotted the blackouts on a map and found a line with a bearing. And a pipeline worker at Dead Horse who can see something standing outside his window that shouldn't be there. 3 calls. None of these people are joking. I've been on the air long enough to know the difference. If you're north of Fairbanks, stay inside tonight. Lock your doors. Keep your heat running. If you can drive south, drive south. This is the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. I'll be here.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce, and this is the Evening Report. In my career, I've covered every kind of disaster this state can produce. I've never had to say what I'm about to say, and I don't have a better way to put it. People who died in the cold are moving. We started getting reports this afternoon from emergency crews working the northern corridor. Rescue teams that reached bodies on the Dalton highway found them standing. Not all of them, but enough. The first reports were attributed to hypothermia confusion, victims who looked dead but weren't. The state trooper's office issued a statement at 4 o'clock using the word reanimation, in quotes, as a folk term observed by field personnel. By 6 o'clock, they'd stopped issuing statements. The eyewitness accounts described the same thing. People confirmed dead, some for hours, standing and moving. Their eyes are blue, not the color eyes go in the cold. A bright lit blue like something behind the iris is burning. They don't speak. They don't respond to voice or contact. They walk toward the nearest living person, and they don't stop. A rescue crew on the Richardson reported shooting one 4 times. It didn't fall. Mira Dane is at Fairbanks Memorial tonight. Mira, what's happening at the hospital?
The ER has been on lockdown since about 5 this afternoon. They brought in 4 cold exposure fatalities from a van that went off the Parks Highway south of Nenana. 3 were pronounced dead on arrival. About an hour later, 2 of the 3 stood up. 1 walked into the hallway before staff could react. It took 6 people to hold it down, and it didn't stop moving until they got it into a sealed room. The ER director told me off camera that conventional restraints don't work. The bodies don't feel pain. They don't tire. One of the nurses told me, and she asked me not to use her name, that they tried to sedate one with enough medication to stop a heart. It had no effect. The heart wasn't beating. They've cleared the ground floor. Patients have been moved upstairs, and the entrances are barricaded. The staff is burning the bodies in the parking lot. I can see the fires from here. 3 of them. Nobody out here is talking. They're watching.
The third body, the one that didn't stand up.
They burned it with the others. Nobody wanted to wait and find out. A paramedic told me he's run calls on every highway in the interior, and he doesn't know what his job is anymore. He said that, and then he went back inside.
We've received what appears to be the last clear transmission from the military convoy that rolled north on the Dalton 2 nights ago. The transmission is broken but audible. The convoy commander reports figures at the tree line, standing, evenly spaced, watching. He describes them as tall, pale, and deliberate. They stood there for about 4 minutes. They didn't approach, they didn't retreat, and then they were gone. Not walking away, gone, like the cold closed over them. Hours later, the dead arrived. The commander's words were, and I'm reading from the transcript, they're not the same thing. The ones in the trees are not the same as what's walking toward us. The ones walking used to be people. The convoy engaged the dead on the highway north of Coldfoot. The transmission includes sustained gunfire over several minutes. Targets that were hit went down and got back up. The commander ordered his soldiers to use fuel. The transmission ends mid-sentence. We haven't heard from the convoy since. Dr. Shireen Glover joins us again tonight. What do you know?
Fire. Fire is the only thing that has stopped them. The hospitals figured it out first. Nothing else works. You can restrain them. You can break them apart. The separated pieces continue to move independently. Fire stops them.
Break them apart.
That's what I said. The rescue crews on the Dalton used what they had. Axes, pry bars. The severed sections continue to move on their own. This isn't hypothermia. This isn't any pathogen in any medical literature. Whatever is driving these bodies operates at a level we don't have a framework for.
What about the propagation? We're hearing that every casualty who isn't burned.
Every person who dies and is not burned comes back. That's the rule. We've observed it 12 times today at 3 sites. 12 out of 12. Time of death doesn't matter. Cause doesn't matter. If the body is intact and it hasn't been burned, it gets up. The longer you wait, the faster they rise.
The longer you wait.
The first ones took hours. The ones from this afternoon took minutes. The interval is getting shorter, and I don't have an explanation for that. What I can tell you is that every body left intact will stand up and walk toward the nearest living person. Burn the dead. That's the guidance. Burn them.
You said 12 observations at 3 sites in one day.
1 hospital, 1 highway corridor, and 1 rescue staging area. Those are the sites I have direct data from. The actual number across the slope is going to be higher. Every cold exposure fatality, every traffic death, every person who didn't make it to shelter. If their bodies are still out there, they're not bodies anymore.
What about the other ones? The ones the convoy described standing in the trees?
I don't have data on those. What I have is a convoy commander who distinguishes them from the risen dead. He says they're taller. They don't move like the dead move, and they arrive first. The dead follow them. That's all I can tell you, and I'm already past what I can confirm.
That's the picture tonight. I don't have anything to add to what Dr. Glover just said. Burn the dead. The convoy is somewhere north of Coldfoot. We don't know if they're alive. The dead are walking south. The things standing in the trees, watching, are something else, and nobody knows what they are. We're going to stay on air as this situation develops. I'm Ned Royce. Stay inside. We'll be here.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the State of Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. This is not a test. A state of emergency has been declared for the North Slope Borough and the Northwest Arctic Borough. Effective immediately, the following communities are placed under a mandatory evacuation order: Utiagvik, Nuiksut, Kaktovik, Wainwright, Point Hope, Point Lay. All residents of these communities are directed to move south toward designated shelters along the Dalton Highway corridor. Residents are advised of the following instructions. Do not travel north under any condition. Do not approach any person standing in open terrain. Do not attempt to recover persons who have succumbed to the cold. Report the location of any deceased person to authorities by radio. Do not remain with the body. Evacuation routing is as follows. Proceed to the nearest community collection point. Transport will move in escorted groups only. Do not travel alone. Do not travel after dark. 1 bag per person. Service animals only. A curfew is in effect from dusk to dawn across the entire evacuation zone. Military and emergency vehicles are moving north on the Dalton Highway. Yield to all northbound traffic. Do not impede the convoy. Checkpoints are established at Coldfoot and at the Yukon River crossing. Have identification ready for inspection. Persons turned back at a checkpoint must comply without exception. Shelter managers will record the name of every person who arrives. Report missing household members at the point of arrival, and not before. Do not return for missing persons. Do not return for property. Authorities will account for all persons once the zone is secured. Extreme cold poses an immediate threat to life. Exposed skin will freeze within 2 minutes. If travel is not possible, shelter in place. Maintain a heat source. Remain indoors. Keep this frequency monitored for further instruction. This message will now repeat. The following message is transmitted at the request of the State of Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. I'm not going to open the way I usually do. There's no point pretending tonight is a normal show. The dead are walking. That's what the news is saying, and that's what the callers are going to tell you. I've got 3 people on the line, and none of them are calling about lights in the sky. Engine in the bush, you're on. Go ahead.
I've been flying people out since yesterday morning. Small loads, 4 at a time, villages off the road system. Tanana, Ruby, Galena, people with nowhere to drive to. I got 11 people out of Tanana before my engine wouldn't turn over. Sat on the strip for 40 minutes hitting the starter. The oil was like tar. It finally caught and I got back to Fairbanks, but I don't know if I can go up again. There's a ham operator in Fairbanks, guy named Roderick, keeps a relay list. Who's still on the air, where they are, how many. Last I heard he had contact with 9 villages. 2 days ago it was 23.
9 out of 23.
The ones that went quiet didn't say goodbye, they just stopped answering. Tanana was the worst. When I landed, there were people standing at the edge of the strip. I thought they were waiting for the plane. They weren't waiting for anything. They were dead. The people I was picking up had to walk past them to get to me.
You flew out with dead standing on the runway.
They don't move fast, but they don't stop. One of the women I was loading couldn't climb into the plane, shaking too hard. Her son was one of the ones standing out there. She recognized his jacket.
How many more trips can you make?
I've done 7. The last 2 I had ice building on the wings before I cleared the river. Well, and I tell you, there's a village past McGrath, maybe 30 people. They've been calling Roderick every hour asking when a plane's coming. I told him I'd try in the morning. That was 12 hours ago, and the temperature's dropped another 15 degrees since.
All right. Rob, you're calling from somewhere on the Dalton. Go ahead.
I'm not sure where I am exactly. We were at a forward position on the Dalton south of Dead Horse. 12 of us, 3 vehicles. We were supposed to hold the road and wait for the resupply convoy. It didn't come. The radio went out around midnight. Then the temperature dropped and they came out of the dark. We fired. It didn't matter. We fired everything we had and they kept walking into it. The rounds were hitting them and they kept coming. I got in a truck and I drove south. I don't know if anybody else got out.
How many were in your unit?
12. I've been trying the radio for 6 hours. Nobody answers. I'm parked on the side of the road with the engine running because I'm scared if I turn it off, it won't start. It's 58 below outside. I can feel it through the door.
Can you drive to Fairbanks?
Maybe a quarter tank. I don't know how far that gets me. There's something out here. Not footsteps, like ice cracking, but in a pattern. Same rhythm every time. It stops and then it starts again, from a different direction. We had a sergeant named Borealis, best of us. When they came out of the tree line, she was the one still firing after the rest of us froze up. She got pulled off the vehicle. I saw it happen. I kept driving.
Stay on the road. Keep driving south. Don't stop for anything. Ramsey and Fairbanks, you're on.
This is insane. All of this is insane. I'm listening to your show on the news, and I'm hearing people talk about the dead walking, and I want you to know this is the most irresponsible broadcasting I've heard in my life. I was born in this state. I've seen 50 below. I've seen whiteouts that lasted a week. People die in the cold, and they don't get back up. What's happening right now is mass panic driven by bad reporting and shows like this, putting scared callers on the air and treating it like news.
What do you think is happening?
I think the cold killed a lot of people, and scared people are seeing things in the dark. I think the military lost a convoy because they sent vehicles that weren't rated for the temperature. I think the villages went off the air because their generators froze. All of that is bad. All of that is real. None of it requires the dead getting up and walking.
All right. What are you doing right now?
I'm packing my truck. My wife and I are driving to Whitehorse tonight, across the border.
You're leaving?
I'm leaving because of the cold. Not because of... We're leaving because of the cold. The furnace can't keep up. It's 40 below in Fairbanks, and it shouldn't be. That's a real problem. The rest of this is panic. My neighbor came by this morning. He's lived here longer than I have. Hunted moose, fished the Tanana his whole life. He told me he saw his dog standing in the yard at 4 in the morning. The dog died 3 days ago. I told him he was tired and seeing things. He looked at me like he felt sorry for me.
Drive safe. That's the show tonight. If you can hear this, get south. If you can't get south, find a building with heat and don't open the door. There's a ham operator in Fairbanks named Roderick, keeping a list of villages still on the air. If you've got a radio, find his frequency. If you've got a phone, call someone and tell them where you are. Engine, if you can hear this, don't go back up. I know you're going to, but don't. Good night.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce. It's 4 in the morning, and we're on the air because the Prudhoe Bay refinery is burning. The fire started roughly 2 hours ago. We don't have a cause. What we have are satellite images showing a thermal signature covering the entire facility. This is not a wellhead incident. The whole complex is on fire. Mira Dane is monitoring feeds from Eielson in the North Slope Borough. Mira, what are you getting?
The first reports came in at 1:50 a.m. from a pipeline monitoring crew about 15 miles south of Prudhoe. They reported a flash on the northern horizon, then a sustained glow. Within 20 minutes, the glow was visible from Dead Horse. The few people still in Dead Horse, pipeline telemetry from the Prudhoe section went offline at 2:12. The Borough Emergency Office has one satellite phone still working. The person on the other end said the fire is not behaving like a refinery fire. It's spreading against the wind. And there's something in it.
Something in it.
Their words, not mine. They said something large came out of the fire, airborne, and they lost visual in the smoke. The borough is classifying it as an unknown aircraft pending identification. I talked to a pipeline tech who was driving south on the Hall Road when the fire started. He said the flames were blue at the center, not orange, blue. And the heat wasn't behaving the way it should. He was 15 miles out and his windshield was frosting over on the inside while the horizon behind him was lit up. A refinery fire that size should warm the air for miles. Instead, the temperature around it dropped. He said it felt like the fire was pulling the cold in rather than pushing heat out.
Colonel Sandor Payne joins us again. Colonel, what do you know about the military situation up north?
The forward elements we discussed 2 days ago are no longer responding. That includes the Stryker Company on the Dalton, the aviation assets at Dead Horse, and the logistics staging area at Galbraith Lake. Contact was lost in sequence over a 6-hour window ending at approximately midnight.
In sequence?
Northernmost units first. Each position went silent, moving south. The pattern is consistent with an advancing threat overrunning fixed positions. I can't characterize that threat based on what I have. The aviation assets at Dead Horse included 2 Blackhawks and a Chinook. Those aircraft carry Arctic-rated de-icing and cold start systems certified to -65. All 3 are on the ground and none of them are answering. The crews aren't answering either. Whatever happened up there didn't care what we sent.
Can't or won't?
Can't. What the field reports described before we lost contact doesn't fit a conventional threat profile. Casualties that continue to move after engagement, equipment failure across every vehicle class simultaneously, temperature readings that don't match any weather model, and now something came out of a refinery fire that ground observers are calling a large animal.
We've received cell phone footage from 2 sources near the Dalton that appears to show something in the air above the fire. The footage is shaky. The image is poor. But both clips show the same shape. It has wings. It's large. Estimates based on the footage put the wingspan at 60 to 80 feet. It came out of the refinery and it flew south. The footage shows it circling the fire for several minutes before heading south. It didn't fly in a straight line. The path tracked the Dalton Highway, the same road the convoy was on. A truck driver south of Adagon Pass says it went over him at about 500 feet. He said the air temperature dropped 30 degrees in the time it took to pass. A hunting guide near Wiseman says it flew over his cabin at low altitude and every window in the building cracked. His thermometer read -40 before it passed. Afterward, it read -72. The glass on the thermometer split.
The thermal satellite data on that object doesn't make sense. The refinery is reading at 1,800 degrees. The object that left the fire is reading cold, not ambient cold. Below the surrounding air temperature, that shouldn't be possible for something that came out of a fire.
Colonel, what are we looking at?
I've commanded units in desert, jungle, and Arctic conditions. I've briefed operations on 4 continents. What I'm looking at on these feeds is a dragon. I don't have a better word for it, and I'm not going to pretend I do. A dragon came out of the Prudhoe refinery and flew south over the Brooks Range, and I'm watching it on a satellite feed that says it's colder than the air it's flying through.
You just said dragon on a news broadcast.
I know what I said. 2 days ago, I told your viewers this was a logistics problem with solutions. It's not. I don't know what it is. But what came out of that fire has wings and it's the size of a building and it's not on any equipment list in any army on Earth. I've said what I can see. Somebody else can explain it.
The fire that was supposed to be our weapon against the dead woke something else up.
That's what the data says. The same heat that stops the risen brought something out of the permafrost that's bigger than anything we've ever cataloged. The fire didn't save us. It changed the fight.
That's the picture at 4 a.m. The Prudhoe refinery is burning. Something came out of the fire. The military units sent north are not responding. Colonel Payne just said the word none of us were going to say. I'm Ned Royce. Stay inside. We'll be here.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. I've got 3 callers tonight. One of them I've been hoping to hear from. 2 of them I've been praying to hear from. Let's go to Tormund at Deadhorse. Go ahead.
I'm still here. I got out of the bunkhouse, made it to one of the trucks. The engine started. I don't know how. I've been sitting in it for 2 days. I've been running the heater in 10-minute bursts to save fuel. When the heater's off, I can see my breath freezing before it hits the windshield.
Can you drive south?
The road's gone. Drifted over. I can't see where it starts. There are things standing between me and where the road should be. I counted 9 of them yesterday. Today there are more. They don't come closer, but they don't leave. Last night the refinery went up. The fire was huge. You could see it from here, and something came out of it. I don't know how to describe this. It was in the air. It was big. It was the size of a building, and it had wings. And it flew south over me low enough that the truck rocked. When it went over, the temperature inside the cab increased so fast the dashboard cracked.
You saw it.
I saw it. It wasn't like a bird. This thing looked like something you would see in Jurassic Park. And it was cold. Not just cold weather. Cold. It was like the air wanted to get away from it. Like the cold was coming off it. The way heat comes off a fire. I'm almost out of fuel. Maybe an hour left. After that, the heater goes off, and it's 70-something below out here. I don't think I'm getting out of this. I wanted to call and tell somebody what I saw before the phone dies, too.
Tormund, stay on the line as long as you can.
Yeah, I will. The ones standing out there, they're closer now. They moved while I was talking. I can see the frost on them. They're not dead like the others. They look like they're waiting for something. Maybe the fuel to run out. Hold on. They just stepped aside. All of them, at the same time. There's something behind them, something taller. It's walking through them like they're not there. It's looking at the truck. I think it's looking at...
Tormund? Tormund, are you there? We've lost the call. We've lost the call from Deadhorse. I'm going to leave that line open in case he comes back. I don't think he's coming back. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I made it. I think. I'm at a gas station south of Livingood. The power's out. The pumps are dead. There's a family in a minivan in the parking lot, and they haven't moved in a while. I'm not going to check.
Don't check. Keep driving if you've got fuel.
I've got a little. I siphoned some from a truck back up the road. The guy in the truck he was sitting in the driver's seat with his eyes open, blue eyes. I took the fuel anyway. I had to. I went inside the gas station to look for food. The cold had cracked the front window. Everything inside was frozen solid. The hot dogs on the roller were white. There was a girl behind the counter, sitting on a stool with her hands in her lap. I looked at her eyes. They were blue. That sound is still out there. The cracking, the pattern. It's been with me since the Dalton. It's not ice. I don't think it's ice. It sounds the same no matter where I go. Same rhythm, same intervals. Like it's following the truck.
Get to Fairbanks. There are people there. There's heat. Don't stop again. Gilly, you're on.
We're still in the village. There are 7 of us now. There were 12 last time I called. My daughter's asleep. That's good. She shouldn't have to hear this.
What happened to the other 5?
2 went out for firewood and didn't come back. 1 went to check on the generator. The other 2 left on foot yesterday. They said they'd rather walk to the highway than wait. We could see them for about a mile. Then the white closed in and they were gone. The 2 who went for firewood, I can see them now. They're standing at the tree line with the others. One of them is still holding the axe. We've been burning furniture. We burned the kitchen table this morning. We'll do the chairs tonight. After that, it's the bookshelves and the bed frames. I made a list, in order, by how long each piece will burn. I've been thinking about fire a lot. It's the only thing that keeps them away, and it's the only thing keeping us alive.
Gilly, how are you so calm?
Because my daughter's asleep, and she can hear my voice through the wall. If I sound scared, she'll wake up. If she wakes up, she'll see what's outside. So I'm calm.
Is there anything I can do?
Keep the show on. We listen every night. It's how we know we're not the last ones. Tell Roderick we're still here. 7 people, 2 kids. We've got fire for maybe 4 more days if we burn everything.
I'll tell him. That's the show tonight. 3 callers. If you're hearing this and you've got heat, stay where you are. If you've got a vehicle and fuel, get south. If you know someone who hasn't checked in, keep calling. Good night.
All right, so if you've been anywhere near the internet in the last 12 hours, you've seen the footage. 2 clips, cell phone, shaky, dark, something in the sky above the Prudhoe Bay refinery fire. And what I want to do today is what we always do on this show, which is look at the thing, take it apart, and figure out what we're actually seeing. Because right now the internet is saying dragon, and I think we can do better than that. My guest is Dr. Jorah Flowers, a wildlife biologist out of the University of Montana. He studies large raptors, wing mechanics, predator thermoregulation. I asked him to come on and tell me what this footage actually shows. Jorah, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. And look, I'll say it up front. My first reaction when I saw the clips was the same as yours. Somebody's flying a drone near a fire. The silhouette is wrong, the lighting's bad, and people see what they want to see. I figured I'd come on, walk through the optics, and we'd wrap this up in 20 minutes.
That's what I like to hear. So let's start with the drone theory. What are you seeing in the footage that supports or rules out a drone?
So the first clip is about 8 seconds, shot from the ground, north-facing. You can see the fire on the horizon and something crossing the upper frame left to right. A drone is the obvious answer, except the second clip was shot from a different location, about 12 miles south and 15 minutes later, and it shows the same object. Same shape, same flight profile, same apparent size. For a drone to read that size at that distance, it would have to be enormous. We're talking fixed-wing military platform, not a consumer quad.
Okay, so not a hobby drone. Could it be a military drone? A Reaper, a Global Hawk, something up there surveilling the fire?
That's where it starts getting uncomfortable. I ran the wing-loading numbers. If you use the refinery structures as a scale reference and triangulate from both clips, the wingspan on this thing is somewhere between 60 and 85 feet. A Reaper is 66 feet, so that's in range. But the flight profile is wrong. Military drones fly straight. They circle in predictable patterns. This thing was banking, adjusting altitude, changing speed. It was flying like something alive.
Hold on. You study wing mechanics for a living. When you say it was flying like something alive, are you saying it had the flight characteristics of a biological organism?
I'm saying the way it moves is consistent with powered flight from a body with joints. A fixed-wing aircraft doesn't adjust like that. The way the leading edge deforms in the second clip, that's not a rigid surface. It looks like a wing that flexes, like a bat, not a plane.
A bat with an 80-foot wingspan. Is there anything in the fossil record that comes close to that?
The largest flying animal we know of is Quetzalcoatlus. Wingspan of about 33 feet. That's the ceiling. Nothing bigger has ever been confirmed in the fossil record. An 80-foot flyer breaks the square cube law. The bones would have to be impossibly light or impossibly strong, or both. I spent 2 hours this morning trying to make the physics work, and I can't. Not with any known material.
Now, just to be clear for people who don't think in wing loading, the biggest animal that ever flew had a 33-foot wingspan. This thing in the footage is 2.5 times that. And you're saying the math says it shouldn't be able to get off the ground.
Correct. The weight-to-lift ratio doesn't work. The larger you scale a flying animal, the heavier it gets relative to the wing surface area. Past about 40 feet, you can't generate enough lift with biological muscle. Whatever this is, it either doesn't weigh what it should, or it's generating lift through some mechanism we haven't cataloged.
Okay, here's the part that got me. And this is why I called you instead of an aviation guy. The news ran satellite thermal data on whatever flew out of that fire. The refinery reads at 1800 degrees, normal for a fuel fire. The object reads cold, not hot, not ambient, below the air temperature around it. How do you even start to explain that?
You don't. Every biological organism generates heat. That's how thermoregulation works. Even cold-blooded animals read at or near ambient on thermal. Something that reads below ambient is absorbing heat from the surrounding air. That's backwards. That's not biology as we understand it.
You said as we understand it. I want to push on that because there's a part of this story that's been sitting underneath everything else and nobody's connecting it. The permafrost. Dr. Glover was on the news saying the drill site at Prudhoe hit organisms in the deep permafrost that don't match any database. Intact organisms, old ones. and now something comes out of the fire at the same drill site. Is there a connection there, or am I building a bridge that doesn't exist?
The permafrost preserves things. We know that. Mammoth tissue, plant matter, viruses. The deeper you go, the older the material and the less we know about it, because we've only drilled into those layers a handful of times. If something large was frozen in deep permafrost, and the thaw, or the drilling, or the fire released it, I can't rule it out. I came on this show to rule it out, and I can't.
There's a conspiracy guy out of Fairbanks who's been saying the government has classified survey reports of structures in the deep permafrost, geometric structures. I normally wouldn't bring that up on this show, but a retired geologist backed the claim on his program. How deep does the permafrost go?
In interior Alaska, nearly 2,000 feet in places. We've drilled into the upper 100 or so. Below that is territory nobody's mapped. There could be anything down there. That's not dramatic. It's a statement about how little we've looked.
That's okay. Let me just make sure I'm hearing you right. You're a biologist. You study things that fly. You looked at this footage, you ran the numbers, and your conclusion is not that it's a hoax. Your conclusion is that you can't explain it.
I can't explain it. The wingspan exceeds the biological ceiling by a factor of 2. The thermal signature is inverted. The flight mechanics suggest a living organism and not a machine. And it came out of a fire at a site where the drill crews found something in the deep ice that nobody could identify. I don't have a debunk for you. I'm sorry.
I've been doing this show for 3 years. I've had flat earthers on here. I've had people who think the moon landing was filmed in a warehouse. And in every single case, the debunk was easy because the evidence was bad. This is the first time I've had a credentialed scientist on this show who looked at the evidence and said, I don't know what this is.
I want to be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying dragon. I'm not using that word. What I'm saying is that what's in this footage doesn't fit inside the categories I have. It's too big to fly. It's too cold to be alive. And it moves like it's both. Somebody with better data than I have needs to look at this. Until then, I don't have an answer for your audience, and I don't want to fake one.
The truck driver who saw it fly over said the temperature dropped 30 degrees. A hunting guide near Wiseman said every window in his cabin cracked. If this thing is absorbing heat from the air around it, it's not just cold, it's a heat sink. Is there any precedent for an organism that works like that?
No. Endothermic chemical reactions absorb heat, sure. But a living organism that functions as a net heat absorber at that scale, no. Nothing in biology does that. Nothing in chemistry does that at the magnitude you're describing. If a creature the size of a small building flew over your head and dropped the temperature 30 degrees, you're describing something that pulls tens of millions of BTS out of the air per minute. That's not an animal. That's a weather system.
I don't know what to do with that. I usually close the show with a joke about the next episode. I don't think I have one today.
I don't either.
Dr. Jorah Flowers, University of Montana. Thank you for coming on. I'll put links to both clips and the thermal data in the show notes. If anybody out there has better footage or better answers, you know where to find us. Stay safe out there.
Good evening, I'm Ned Royce. KFNX Fairbanks is broadcasting under emergency power tonight after the main grid failed across interior Alaska at 3:47 this afternoon. The Dalton Highway, the only road connecting Fairbanks to the North Slope, has been declared impassable. DOT crews sent to clear drift damage 2 days ago have not reported back. Canada has opened its border to Alaska residents at all crossings from Beaver Creek to Haines Junction. The Canadian Armed Forces are staging warming stations on the Alaska Highway at 30-mile intervals. We go now to Mira Dane, who is at the Fairbanks Memorial staging area.
Ned, I'm standing in the hospital parking lot where they've set up an intake triage. The generators are running, but they've cut heat to the east wing to keep the operating rooms warm. There are people sleeping in cars in this parking lot. The hospital won't let them inside because they can't screen for frostbite cases who might have been exposed to the dead. The radio blackout is spreading. 2 days ago, we had contact with 11 communities north of the range. As of this evening, we have contact with 3. The pattern is the same every time. The signal gets weaker over a few hours. There's static and then nothing. Roderick Flint, the ham operator coordinating the relay network, says it's moving south at roughly 40 miles a day.
Mira, at 40 miles a day, how long before that blackout reaches Fairbanks?
The closest community still transmitting is about 120 miles north. 3 days, maybe 4 if it slows down. But Ned, nothing about this has slowed down.
We're joined now by General Gregor Marsh, Deputy Commander of U.S. Northern Command, speaking from Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado. General, what is the federal government's response to the situation in Alaska?
The President has authorized the deployment of the 2nd Stryker Brigade from Joint Base Lewis-McChord. We're also activating elements of the Alaska National Guard at Fort Wainwright and Eidelson. FEMA is coordinating with the state on evacuation corridors, and we have C-17s staged at Elmendorf ready to fly as soon as weather permits.
General, the weather hasn't permitted anything in 6 days. When does this deployment reach Alaska?
We're working with the National Weather Service on flight windows. We have no playbook for this. We've never seen sustained temperatures at this level across this wide an area. I want to assure your audience that the full weight of the Department of Defense is being brought to bear on this crisis.
We lost a Stryker company and 2 Blackhawks on the North Slope 3 days ago. What happened to them?
Those operations are under review. I'm not in a position to discuss ongoing assessments on an open broadcast. What I can tell you is that every lesson from those engagements is being incorporated into our planning.
General, the people listening to this broadcast are burning furniture to stay warm. They need a date.
I understand that, I do. We are working around the clock. The moment we have a viable corridor, we will move. I don't have a date for you tonight.
Has the Department of Defense acknowledged the aerial phenomenon reported over the North Slope?
We're aware of those reports. NORAD is tracking everything in the airspace. Beyond that, I'd be speculating, and I won't do that on air.
General, thank you. I know you can't say more on an open broadcast. Mira, what are you seeing on the ground tonight?
The Richardson Highway south toward Valdez is still open, but it's one lane in both directions. Traffic hasn't moved in 3 hours. People are running out of gas in the line. When a car stalls, the cars behind it are pushing it off the road into the snowbank. I watched a man and his wife abandon a pickup truck with everything they owned in the bed. They walked to the next car in line and got in with strangers. The Alaska Highway toward Canada is moving a little faster, but the fuel stations between Tok and the border are dry. There's a line of cars pulled over at every mile marker waiting for someone to bring gas that isn't coming. The temperature at the Tok junction is negative 58.
We have a developing story. A fuel tanker has jackknifed on the Parks Highway approximately 40 miles south of Fairbanks near the Nunna River Bridge. The tanker is on fire. Multiple callers to our newsroom are reporting the fire is visible from Healy. I'm now reading from text sent to our newsroom. A driver at mile 157 says, and I'm reading this directly, something came down out of the sky onto the fire. He says it was the size of a house. It landed on the tanker and the fire went blue. A second caller at mile 162 says the same thing. She says the fire is still burning, but the temperature outside her car dropped 20 degrees in the time it took her to pull over. She says the thing is still on the tanker. She can see it against the flames. She says it's feeding.
Ned, the Parks Highway is bumper to bumper right now. There are hundreds of cars between that tanker and Fairbanks. Those people can see the fire from where they're sitting. They can't turn around. There's nowhere to go back to.
2 days ago, this thing was on the North Slope. Tonight, it's 40 miles south of us. We will continue to monitor this situation through the night. KFNX is broadcasting on emergency power and will remain on the air as long as the generator holds. If you are on the roads tonight, do not stop for fires. Do not stop for anything. Keep moving south. We're going to pause our coverage now because the President of the United States is about to address the nation. This is the first time the President has spoken directly to the country about what's happening in the North. Until tonight, this has been our story, Alaska's story. In a moment, it becomes everyone's. Here is President Walter Hightower.
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak with you plainly about the events in our nation's far north. Over the past 2 weeks, the people of Alaska have faced a severe and fast-moving emergency. An extreme weather event, and the conditions arising from it, have cut off communities across the northern part of the state and have taken the lives of Americans whose names we are still working to learn. To the families waiting for word tonight, we are coming for you, and we will not stop until every one of you is accounted for. I have directed the full weight of the federal government toward this crisis. Every agency, every capability, every resource we possess is being brought to bear. The men and women of our armed forces are moving toward the affected region with the same courage that has always defined them. Some have already given everything they had to give. We will honor them by finishing what they began. I have ordered the Department of Defense, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and every relevant arm of your government to treat the movement and the shelter of our citizens as the first priority of this nation. Your National Guard has been federalized across more than a dozen states tonight and is moving to assist. Shelters are opening as I speak across the western states and along every route south. Our partners in Canada have opened their border to Americans in need, and I am grateful to them, as you should be. If you are asked to leave your home, please go. Property can be replaced. The people in your passenger seat cannot. I want to be truthful with you about what we know and about what we do not. The conditions in the North are unlike anything in our experience, and there are questions tonight that your government cannot yet answer. You will hear a great many things in the days ahead. Some of them will be true. Some of them will be fear wearing the costume of truth. I ask you to hold steady, to care for one another, and to remember that this country has never been measured by the size of the threat against it, but by what we are willing to do for each other when the night runs long. I am asking something of you tonight, and I know it is not easy. I am asking for calm. I am asking those of you in the path of these conditions to follow the instructions of your local authorities, to move when you are told to move, and to look after your neighbors on the way. This nation has walked through darkness before. In the dark, we light the way for one another. We have always come through it together. We came through because ordinary people did extraordinary things for one another when everything was on the line. That is what is being asked of you now. I will not stand here and offer you easy promises tonight. The road ahead is hard, and I would dishonor you by pretending otherwise. But I believe in the strength of this country and in the plain decency of its people, and I believe we will meet this the way we have met every trial in our history. Hold your families close tonight. Pray, if you are inclined to, and know that the full weight of the federal government stands behind you. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. And to those of you still in the North tonight, beyond the reach of our roads and our radios, I want to say this. Though I do not know whether it will ever reach you, you have not been abandoned. Your country is doing everything within its power, and where its power ends, its prayers go on. We are coming. Hold on.
President Walter Hightower from the White House. The first national address on a crisis that began as a warm week in the interior and is now, in the president's own words, everyone's. He asked for calm. He asked us to move when we're told to move. He used the phrase, the full weight of the federal government, twice tonight, and I'd be lying to you if I said it landed the way it would have a month ago. I'm Ned Royce. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. The President spoke tonight. If you heard it, you heard what I heard. Good words, the right words, and no planes in the air. Brienne, you're up first.
I'm in Delta Junction. The road between here and Fairbanks is still open, but barely. There's ice heave on the highway and nobody's fixing it. Talk is gone. I don't mean the road's closed. I mean the town is empty. We drove through it this morning looking for fuel. Every building was dark, doors open, cars in driveways with the engines off and frost on the inside of the windshields.
Did you see anyone?
We saw tracks going south. Hundreds of them. People on foot heading toward the highway. And we saw some people who weren't walking anymore. Standing in the parking lot of the gas station. 6 or 7 of them, not moving. Just standing there in the cold like they were waiting for something to tell them where to go. In Manchester, we found a school bus on the side of the road. The door was open and there were backpacks in the aisle. Little ones with cartoon patches. No kids, no driver, just the bags and the cold. I've been keeping a list. Manchester, Slana, Chisticina, Copper Center. Every town between the border and Glenallen is either empty or dark. The ones that still have people in them are running on generator fuel and prayer. Most of them have maybe 2 days of either one left.
Where are you heading?
South. Same as everyone. I'm bringing people with me. I've got 9 in the truck and a family of 4 following in their own vehicle. We're trying to make Whitehorse.
Be safe. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, Davos. I'm a trucker. I've been sitting in the same spot on the Alaska Highway for 14 hours. I'm about 30 miles east of Talk. And the line goes as far as I can see in both directions. Nobody's moving. A couple guys ahead of me got out and walked up the line to see what the holdup was. They came back and said there's a jackknife rig about 2 miles up blocking both lanes. People are getting out of their cars and building fires on the shoulder. There's a woman 2 trucks ahead of me who's been burning her spare tire for heat. The rubber smoke is thick enough to taste. Some people are sharing food, some people aren't. I watched a guy pull a rifle out of his truck when someone knocked on his window asking for water. When a car runs out of gas, it's over fast. The engine dies, the heat stops, and you've got maybe 20 minutes before the cold gets inside. I've watched 3 families leave their cars and walk down the line knocking on windows. The lucky ones get let in. The unlucky ones keep walking.
You said you saw something in the sky.
About 3 hours ago, the aurora was going strong. Green and white, the whole sky, and something crossed through it. It was big. It blocked out the light as it passed. You could see the shape of it against the green. Wings, a body, a head. It went east to west across the highway, and then it turned and came back and followed the line of cars south for maybe a mile before it climbed and disappeared. When it passed over, the temperature dropped. Every windshield in the line frosted over at the same time. My engine sputtered. A guy on the CB said his thermometer went from -40 to -60 in about 10 seconds and then came back up after it was gone. The CB went off after that. Half the guys said it was a military drone. Somebody said it was a B-2 bomber. One guy said it was an angel. Nobody said it was what it looked like. Nobody wanted to be the one to say it.
What did it look like, Ed?
You know what it looked like. Everybody listening knows what it looked like. It looked like a damn dragon.
Eileen, go ahead.
I'm at St. Michael's in North Pole. There are about 40 of us here. We've got the boiler running and food for maybe a week. We opened the doors 3 days ago and people started coming. Families, mostly. Some of them walked here from Eelson after the base lost power. A paramedic came in yesterday morning. He sat down in the last pew and didn't say a word for 12 hours. Just sat there with his hands on his knees staring at the floor. When he finally talked, he said he'd been pulling bodies out of houses for 3 days and some of them sat up while he was carrying them.
Are you safe there?
Safe enough for now. We've got walls and we've got heat and we've got each other. I know people are scared. I've been scared too, but I've been reading scripture with these folks every night, and I'll tell you what I've come to believe. This isn't random. This isn't an accident. This cold, these things walking, whatever's in the sky, it's bigger than us, and it was always bigger than us. I'm not panicking anymore. I was at first. Everybody was. But somewhere around the second night, I stopped being afraid and started being still. If this is the end of something, then it's the end of something. We'll meet it with our hands open and our eyes up. That's all anyone can do.
I don't know if that's faith or surrender. I think tonight it might be both. That's the show. Brienne on the road, counting dead towns. Ed stuck in a line that isn't moving, watching things fly through the northern lights. Elise in a church full of strangers who stopped running. Tormund didn't call tonight. I left the line open for an hour before the show. Nothing. Good night.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce. KFNX Fairbanks continues emergency coverage of the crisis in Alaska. Anchorage is evacuating. There is no organized plan. There is no order. The city of 300,000 people is trying to leave at the same time on a single two-lane road. The Glen Highway from Anchorage to the Alaska Highway Junction at Tok is the only land route out of the state. State troopers report bumper-to-bumper traffic from the Muldoon on-ramp to Palmer, roughly 40 miles. Beyond Palmer, the road narrows and conditions worsen. Mira Dane is on the Glen Highway east of Palmer.
Ned, I'm on the highway at mile 114. I can see taillights in both directions for miles. Nothing is moving. Cars are stalled 3 and 4 deep on the shoulder. People have been idling for so long, they're running out of gas in place. When a car dies, the cars behind it just sit there. There's nowhere to push it and nowhere to go around. I can see families walking on the road between the cars. They are carrying what they can, suitcases, garbage bags full of clothes. A woman just walked past me holding a cat in one arm and a photo album in the other. Her kids are behind her in pajamas and winter boots. They're walking toward Glen Allen. That's 120 miles.
We have Frank Reed, Anchorage Emergency Management Director, on the phone. What is the plan for getting these people out?
Our priority right now is fuel distribution and traffic management. We've got troopers at every major intersection trying to keep the flow moving. We're working with the Guard to get fuel trucks out to the highway to top off vehicles that are running dry. The Canadian government has agreed to accept all comers at the border crossings. That's our best corridor.
300,000 people on a two-lane road in negative 50-degree weather. Did your office have a plan for this?
We have evacuation plans for earthquakes, for tsunamis, for volcanic eruptions. We don't have a plan for the entire population of a city leaving at once in conditions that make the roads nearly unusable. Nobody does. This isn't a scenario anyone built a plan for. The airport is full of people who bought tickets before the flights were grounded. There are about 4,000 people sleeping in the terminal at Ted Stevens right now. The heat is still on, but the food court ran out of food yesterday, and the water pressure is failing. We're trying to get supplies in there, but most of our logistics people are on the highway doing traffic control. We don't have enough people for both.
We also have Dr. Petir Tully, clinical psychologist at UAA, on the line. Doctor, what happens to a population that's trying to flee and can't?
There's a well-documented pattern. When a large population perceives an existential threat and the exit routes are insufficient, you see 3 phases. First is the rush. Everyone moves at once. Second is the jam. The exit clogs and movement stops. At that point, you get a split. Some people become cooperative. They share resources, organize, take turns. Others become territorial. They hoard, they threaten, they decide that their family's survival means someone else's doesn't.
What's the third phase?
Resignation. People stop trying to leave. They go home. They lock the door. They sit with whoever's there. That's usually the most dangerous phase, because by then the threat is close enough that staying is fatal.
Which phase are we in?
From what I can see, Anchorage is at the end of phase 2. The people still on the road are the ones who believe movement is survival even when it's not. The ones who turned around are already home.
Mira, what else are you seeing out there?
Some people have been turning around. A man in an SUV just made a 3-point turn across the median and headed back toward Anchorage. He told the trooper he'd rather die at home than on the highway. There have been fights at the fuel points. I saw 2 men throwing punches over a 5-gallon can of gas. A trooper broke it up and the gas spilled on the ice. The front of the line, the people closest to the border, they're the ones who left first. The ones who took the threat seriously before anyone else. The people at the back of this line are the ones who waited. They waited for the government, they waited for the plan, they waited for someone to tell them what to do. And now they're sitting in traffic, watching the temperature drop.
My sister is in that line. She left Anchorage yesterday morning with her 2 kids and a full tank of gas. She texted me from Palmer at noon. I haven't heard from her since. Cell service went down on the Glen Highway around 6 p.m. I keep picking up my phone between segments and checking. There's nothing there. I'm sorry. The cold front that has been moving south through the interior is now approaching the northern edge of the Alaska Range. If it crosses the range, which meteorologists are calling likely within the next 48 hours, it will reach the Matanuska Valley and the northern outskirts of Anchorage. The front is following the same road south that these people are on. KFNX will continue coverage through the night. If you are in Anchorage and you have not left, the recommendation from State Emergency Management is to shelter in the most insulated structure available with the largest possible fuel supply. If you are on the road, do not abandon your vehicle unless you have confirmed shelter within walking distance. Stay warm.
I had a sermon written for this Sunday. It's sitting in my office in a building half of you have already driven past on your way out of town. And I'm going to leave it right there because it was written for a Sunday that isn't coming. So I'll talk to you the way I would if you'd stopped your car for a minute, which some of you have. I can see your headlights through the doors. You don't have to come inside. Keep the engine running. I'll be quick. There's a line from the book of Matthew I keep hearing tonight. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Now, I've always preached that verse as a comfort, and tonight it isn't a comfort, it's an instruction. It means tonight you only have to get through tonight, not the winter, not the whole road to wherever you're going. Just the next stretch of dark in front of your headlights. That's all that's being asked of you right now. The next stretch. Some of you have been sitting in your cars trying to decide what to bring. And I want to speak to that because it's a holy question and nobody told you it was one. You can only carry a little. A car holds what it holds. So here is what I'd carry if you're asking a pastor. And I think some of you are. Carry people. Carry the old woman next door who never learned to drive. Carry the boy whose folks didn't make it home. Leave the television. Leave the dishes your mother handed down. And I know exactly what I'm asking, because I have my mother's dishes too, and they're staying on the shelf. The dishes can't love anybody. The seat they take can. And I want to give you something, because I think some of you have been waiting for a man in a collar to give it to you. Go. It is not faithless to flee. It is not a failure of trust in God to put your children in a car and drive away from the danger. The Holy Family did exactly that. When the danger came for the child, they got up in the night and ran for Egypt. And no one in 2,000 years has called Joseph a coward for it. Running toward life is not the opposite of faith. Some nights it is the whole of faith. So go. Go tonight. And go together. Because this road is going to ask things of you that no one can do alone. And I have to say a word to those of you who are not getting in a car tonight because you can't, or because you won't leave someone who can't. The man who won't leave his wife's bedside. The daughter staying with a father who can't be moved. Hear me now. There is no sin in your staying. Love that refuses to leave is not foolishness. It is the holiest thing I know. And God is in that cold room with you as surely as he is out on that road, maybe more surely. I will not tell you you're wrong to stay. I'll only ask you to do it on purpose, with your eyes open, and to tell the person you're staying for that you chose them. Say it out loud to them. Let it be the thing the house is full of. Some of you can hear it tonight, in the walls, in the road. in the dark outside the door you stopped opening 2 days ago. I'm not going to hand you a tidy verse for that sound. Fear isn't a problem you solve with the right scripture. It's a room you have to stand in long enough to learn what's actually in it. So I'll stand in it with you for a moment. All of us together on this one radio frequency. There, you are not standing in it alone. That's the one thing I know to be true tonight, and it's enough to walk on. I'm going to lock these doors soon and get in my own car. And it feels strange to say that from a pulpit. So let me say the true thing underneath it. I used to think my job was to keep the lamp lit inside the building. I had it backwards. The light was never the building. God isn't staying behind here when you leave tonight. He's getting on the road with you, in the cold, in the line, in the back seat with the sleeping kids. That's the whole gospel I've got for you, in plain words. You are not driving away from God tonight. You're driving with him. Now go, and may the Lord keep you on the way, and keep the way open, and bring you up safe into the morning. Drive careful. I'll see you down the road.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. 3 callers tonight. One of them is Gilly, who I've been thinking about since she last called in. But we're going to start with Benjamin. Benjamin, go ahead.
The plane's done. Oil froze in the engine block. I tried everything I know and a few things I don't. It's not starting again. I'm at the strip in McGrath. There's nobody here. The village is dark. I found a pair of snowshoes in a shed and I'm heading south on foot.
On foot? In this...
I've got a sleeping bag rated to -40. It's -73 out here, so that's about half a bag short. I'm following the Kuskokwim River south. I got the last 7 people off that village past McGrath before the plane died. A woman and her 6 grandchildren. I put them on the last flight out and told the woman in Nikolai I'd be right behind her. I wasn't. On my last flight, I could see the line from the air. The white, the edge of it. It's not weather, Davos. Weather doesn't have an edge like that. It's a wall, straight as a ruler across the landscape. On one side it's Alaska, on the other side it's something else. And it's moving south. I flew over 2 villages on the way back. Lights on, smoke from the chimneys, and people standing in the streets, standing still, in -70. Nobody standing in -70 is alive. Roderick's relay is still working out here. That's how I'm reaching you. He's patching me through from a repeater on a ridge east of here. He says there's one community still transmitting north of the range. One. Everything else is gone.
Don't walk at night. Find shelter and wait for daylight.
Daylight's about 3 hours long up here right now. I can't afford to wait. I'll check in when I can.
Talisa, go ahead.
I'm a nurse at Providence in Anchorage. I've been on shift for 36 hours. The ER is full. The hallways are full. We've got people on the floor of the cafeteria with frostbite and hypothermia. We ran out of IV fluid this morning. We're using heated blankets and tap water. A boy came in alone this morning, 8 or 9 years old. He walked here from Mountain View in his socks. His mother told him to go to the hospital and she'd meet him there. His feet are black. He keeps asking when his mom is coming. He hasn't cried yet. That's the part that scares me. A man came in this afternoon with his wife. She'd been dead in the car for at least 2 hours. He drove all the way here with her in the passenger seat because he didn't know what else to do. We took her to the morgue. 20 minutes later, somebody from the morgue called us and said she was sitting up.
What did you do?
We locked the morgue door. We don't go down there anymore. Nobody goes down there. We can hear them moving around. There are 11 bodies in there. At least 6 of them are moving. Half the staff has left. The ones who made it to the parking lot came back in 20 minutes. Their cars won't start. The battery fluid is frozen solid. We've stopped treating frostbite. We don't have the supplies. If you can walk, you wait. If you can't, we do what we can.
Gilly, are you there?
I'm here. We burned the last of the bed frames this afternoon. We've got the door frames left, the ones we can pry out without bringing down the walls. After that, it's the floorboards. There are 5 of us now. An older man went outside this morning to get snow to melt for water. He was 10 feet from the door. They came out of the tree line so fast. We watched through the window. My daughter didn't see. I made sure of that.
How's your daughter?
She's sleeping. She's always sleeping now. I think that's how she handles it. She curls up under the blankets and closes her eyes. And when she opens them, she asks if help came yet. I keep saying soon. I don't know if that's a lie or not. I stopped caring if it's a lie. It gets her through the night. Davos, there's something at the door. It's not knocking, it's just standing there. I can see the shadow under the door. The cold is coming through the crack like water. It's been there for about an hour. Hold on, my daughter just woke up. I need to take her to the other room. I'll be right...
Gilly? Gilly, are you there? The line is still open. I can hear something on the other end. It sounds like ice cracking, but it has a pattern to it. A rhythm. It's coming through her phone. I need to tell you something. I'm looking out the studio window right now. The streetlight on College Road is still on. It's the only one left on the whole street. And there are 3 figures standing in the road under it. They're tall, taller than a person should be. They're white, not pale. White like the frost on the inside of a window. They're standing still and they're looking at this building. That's the show. Tormund didn't call tonight. I left the line open for an hour before the show. Nothing. If there's a show tomorrow, I don't know where I'll be broadcasting from, but I'll be broadcasting. Good night.
This is KFNX Fairbanks. I'm Ned Royce with continuing coverage. It is 2:17 in the morning, and I'm going to tell you what happened in the last hour because some of it I still don't believe I watched. At approximately 1:30 a.m., the power grid in Fairbanks failed completely. Not a rolling blackout, not a partial outage. The entire grid went down at once as if someone had pulled a single switch. Our building switched to generator power. That generator ran for about 12 minutes before it seized. The fuel in the tank had turned to gel. Davos Pyke was on the air when the building went dark. I'm told he kept talking for about 30 seconds into a dead microphone before somebody pulled him out of the studio. He loaded a portable transmitter and a second generator into the bed of his truck, and he drove south on the Richardson Highway with the rest of the city. The Borealis Hour is now broadcasting from a truck cab. He's reaching us through Roderick Flint's ham relay, which is the only communication network still functioning north of the Alaska Range. The city of Fairbanks is dark tonight. I don't mean parts of it. I mean the city, the whole city. 32,000 people lived here. Most of them left on the highways over the last 2 days. The ones who stayed are in their homes with the doors locked and whatever heat they have left. As of 1:30 this morning, there is nothing running in Fairbanks. No power, no water pressure, no cell service, no landlines. We are broadcasting to you from our affiliate studio in Anchorage on emergency power. If you are just joining us, here is what we know at this hour. The cold front that began on the North Slope 9 days ago has now reached the interior of Alaska. Fairbanks has fallen. Every community north of the Alaska Range that was still transmitting is now silent. The exodus is moving south on 2 highways. The Glen Highway toward Anchorage and the Alaska Highway toward the Canadian border. Mira Dane is in one of those convoys. She relocated south with part of the network crew 36 hours ago. Mira, where are you right now?
Ned, I'm on the Alaska Highway about 40 miles past the Canadian border. We crossed at Beaver Creek around midnight. The Canadian border agents were waving people through without stopping. They had blankets and water bottles, and they were handing them through car windows as people drove past. Nobody was checking passports. Nobody was checking anything. They just wanted people across the line. The convoy is about 8 miles long from what I can see. Trucks, cars, RVs, a school bus from Tok. People are sleeping in their vehicles while one person drives. Every few miles, somebody's car has died on the shoulder, and you can see the family walking alongside the road carrying whatever they grabbed. A man was carrying a guitar case and a bag of dog food. No dog, just the food.
What's the temperature where you are?
Negative 42 when I checked an hour ago. That's warmer than it was in Tok, warmer than Fairbanks. But it's still cold enough to kill you in about 15 minutes if you're outside without gear. There's a family 2 cars ahead of me. Their heater failed. They moved into our vehicle about an hour ago. There are 7 of us in a 5-seat SUV, and nobody's complaining.
Have you seen anything on the road? Anything behind the convoy?
Nothing that I can see, but nobody looks behind them. Nobody in this convoy turns around. About an hour before the border, the northern sky lit up. The whole horizon went orange for about 30 seconds. People in the back of the convoy said it looked like a fuel depot going up. Then the light turned blue and it went out. Ned, I want to tell you about the Canadians. There are CMP trucks parked every few miles along the highway. They're directing traffic. They've got fuel stations set up at Destruction Bay and Haines Junction. A volunteer in a red parka walked the length of the convoy at Beaver Creek, checking on every car. She knocked on windows and asked if anyone needed medical attention. She had a clipboard and she was writing down names. That's the first time in a week somebody wrote down a name.
Mira, stay safe. Check in when you can. We've heard from Mira Dane, reporting from the Alaska Highway Convoy, now inside the Yukon Territory. I want to stop here and say something that isn't on the copy in front of me. I've been on this desk for 9 days. In that time, I've reported on temperatures that shouldn't exist, on people who died and got back up, on a thing in the sky that I still don't have a word for. I've reported on towns that went silent one after another, going north to south like candles in a draft. Tonight, Fairbanks went dark and we lost the last fixed station in the interior. Davos Pyke is in a truck on the highway. Mira is in a convoy in the Yukon. I'm in Anchorage on a generator that could quit any hour. There is no building behind this broadcast anymore. There's a relay and a few people who haven't stopped talking yet. I haven't heard from my sister. Cell service on the Glen Highway is still down. She was in that line 2 days ago. I don't know if she made it through Palmer. I don't know where she is tonight. If you're listening, I want you to do something for me. Pray for all of those we haven't heard from, those still stuck somewhere in the north, trying desperately to get to safety. KFNX will continue broadcasting for as long as we have power and a signal. This is Ned Royce in Anchorage. Stay with us.
This is KL7RQ Flint. Anyone monitoring this frequency, I need you to copy this and pass it along. I had a military station come through tonight on the emergency band. It was a guard unit. They said they were stationed along the Richardson Highway near the Delta Junction. Full company holding the road for convoys moving south. The sergeant who called in said they made contact at dusk. The dead came out of the tree line, hundreds of them. The soldiers opened fire. He said they put everything they had into them, rifles, heavy weapons, whatever they could bring up. Then they said they started using incendiaries. For a while, he said he thought he stopped them. The fire line was holding, the dead were burning, and for about 20 minutes, they thought they had won. Then these tall ones came through. Same description as before, white, tall, carrying those clear blades. He said they walked straight through the fire line, didn't slow them down, they didn't even react. Those blades went through their vehicles like they weren't even there. Armor, steel, everything. He said they didn't fight like anything he'd ever seen before. When the shooting stopped, one of them walked out to where the dead soldiers were lying, and it raised its arms. He said every dead man on that road got back up. Every single one of them. Men he'd been standing alongside minutes earlier. The men he'd watched fall. They stood up and started walking south. That's when they decided to leave. His signal cut after that. I've been trying to reach him every 10 minutes, but nothing. Every soldier we lose, it appears they come back. And when they come back, they're on the other side. This is KL7RQ. Stay warm and stay safe.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke, and I'm broadcasting from a truck cab on the Richardson Highway heading south. I don't have a studio anymore. I've got a portable transmitter, a generator in the truck bed, and a wire coat hanger for an antenna. If the signal cuts out, it's because the generator ran dry or the antenna fell over. Either way, I'll fix it and come back. No callers tonight. Roderick's relay went down about an hour ago. He was the last link I had to anyone north of the range and to anyone calling in from the road. Without him, I'm just a man talking into a microphone in a truck. I'm going to keep talking anyway. Before the relay dropped, I got one last call through. It was Rob Snow, the kid from the gas station who saw the girl with the blue eyes. The signal was bad, breaking up every few words. He was trying to tell me something, but I could only get pieces. Static, then a word. Static, then more static. The last thing I got clear was a name. Hannah. He said it once, just the name. Then the ice cracking sound came through and the line went dead. I don't know who Hannah is, his girlfriend, his sister, his daughter. I don't know, but that was the word he chose when the cold was taking his signal, and he had one word left. Rob's not going to call again. That makes 3. Tormund, Gilly, Rob. 3 people who called this show because they were alone and they wanted somebody to hear them, and now all 3 lines are dead. Let me tell you about the highway. I'm in a line of vehicles that hasn't moved faster than 15 miles an hour since I got on the road. Headlights in front of me as far as I can see. Headlights behind me. The temperature outside is negative 58. I've got the heat on full, and it's barely keeping the windshield clear. There are cars on the shoulder that have stopped. Some of them still have their lights on, some don't. The ones with the lights off have frost on the inside of the windows, and nobody has gotten out. I passed a minivan with a child's drawing taped to the back window. A house with a yellow sun and 4 stick figures holding hands. You drive past them and you don't stop. You can't stop. If you stop, the car behind you stops. And the car behind that, and inside of 20 minutes, the whole line is frozen in place. About 40 minutes ago, something happened that I need to talk about. There was a wildfire burning in the trees about a quarter mile off the highway. Somebody's campfire or a propane tank, I don't know, big enough to light up the road for a stretch. People were leaning toward it, watching it. Some of them pulled over to get closer to the heat. Then the dead came out of the tree line. A column of them. I could see them in the firelight, 200, maybe more. Walking in a group, shoulder to shoulder, moving toward the fire and the cars beside it. People started screaming and pulling back onto the road. 2 cars collided trying to get past each other. And then the dragon came. It came in low from the north. I could feel the air change before I saw it. The temperature went up 20 degrees in about 5 seconds. My windshield cleared. It was bigger than anything I've seen in the sky. Bigger than a plane. The wings blocked out the aurora as it passed over us. People stopped screaming and just looked up. It banked toward the wildfire, and then it turned and made one pass through that column of dead. One pass. The fire was blue. The dead were gone. All of them. There was nothing left on the ground but black snow and steam. Nobody cheered. because when the dragon came, it came to the fire, and the people who had pulled over to warm themselves by the wildfire were standing right next to it. I saw 3 of them running. 2 made it to the road. The 3rd one didn't. The blue fire doesn't care what it's burning. After the dragon passed, people got out of their cars and put out their fires, their campfires, their propane heaters, anything with a flame. They put them out by hand, with snow, with blankets, with whatever they had. Nobody said a word about it. They just did it. Because fire is a beacon now. Fire tells it where to look. So now we drive in the dark. No fires, no headlights if we can help it. Parking lights only when we have to see the road. People are running their engines on fumes because the heat is the only thing keeping them alive, but the fuel is what keeps them moving. The convoy is a line of dark shapes moving south at 10 miles an hour, and nobody talks about what happens when the gas runs out. The engine is out here somewhere, walking south from McGrath on snowshoes in -70. I haven't heard from him since the relay dropped. I don't know if he's still walking. I hope he found a cabin. I hope there's a wood stove in it. That's the show tonight. I don't know if anyone can hear this. The transmitter is running, but without Roderick's relay, I've got no way to know if the signal is reaching anything. If it is, I want you to know that Rob Snow said the name Hannah with his last clear breath on a phone line. I don't know who she is, but somebody should know he said it. Good night.
This is KFNX with a special report. I'm Ned Royce. If you're just joining us, here's what we know at this hour. The front that began on Alaska's north slope has crossed the Canadian border. Whitehorse, Yukon Territory, population 25,000, went silent at approximately 4 a.m. Pacific time. We have no contact with the city. Canadian authorities have confirmed that all communication with Whitehorse has been lost. This is no longer an Alaskan event. The front is now moving south through British Columbia. It's following the highway corridor, the same roads the evacuees are on. Mira Dane is on the Alaska Highway south of Whitehorse. Mira, what are you seeing?
Ned, we passed through Whitehorse yesterday afternoon. It was working. People were in the streets. The gas stations were open. There were RCMP officers directing traffic at every intersection. A woman at a Tim Hortons was handing out free coffee to anyone in the convoy. She said they'd been doing it for 3 days straight. That was 18 hours ago. The convoy that left behind us is gone. The road north of us is empty. I tried calling the RCMP detachment in Whitehorse an hour ago. The line rang and nobody picked up. There's a fuel depot burning about 15 miles north of our position. We can see the smoke from where we are. It's been burning for hours. The column is black and it goes straight up because there's no wind. About an hour ago, the fire changed color. It went from orange to a blue-white, the same color we saw on the north slope, and then something came out of it.
A second one.
A second one, smaller than the first. It circled the depot twice and then headed south. It's ahead of us now, Ned, between us and wherever we're going.
Mira, stay with us. I'm being told we have Dr. Shireen Glover on the line. Dr. Glover is a climatologist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. She was one of the first scientists to study the anomalous cold front. Dr. Glover, you've been following this from the beginning. What are we looking at?
The front moves in 2 directions, and they work differently. East to west, it moves fast, along latitudes where winter already exists. It doesn't need to create cold. The cold is already there. That's how it crossed the Arctic in days. But going south is slower. Going south, it has to make its own winter first. It pushes the temperature down ahead of itself, kills the infrastructure, kills the power grid, and then it moves into the dead zone it created.
So the corridor stayed ahead of it because the corridor was moving south.
The corridor is outrunning it for now, but it's making ground. Every day it pushes the freezing line a little further south. And it's not just temperature. The dead are part of the system. They move with the front. They move ahead of it sometimes. Wherever the front goes, the dead go. And wherever the dead go, the dead multiply.
What about the things in the sky, the dragons? Mira just reported a second hatching from a fuel depot fire.
The fires are incubators. Every large fire produces one. The depot fire, the pipeline fire on the north slope, probably the wildfires in the interior. Wherever the world burns hot enough and long enough, something comes out of it. They aren't part of the front. They're a reaction to it. The world's immune system, if you want to think of it that way. But they don't distinguish between the dead and the living when they burn.
Is there anything that works against the things controlling the dead, not the dead themselves? The tall white ones?
Obsidian. Volcanic glass. I received a set of documents 3 days ago from a source I can't identify. No return address. No name. The postmark was Juno. The documents referenced historical accounts of encounters with entities matching the description of what we're seeing, and in every account the counter was the same. Obsidian. A blade or a point made from volcanic glass driven into the body. The reaction is instantaneous. They dissolve.
Historical accounts. How old are these documents?
The accounts reference events from thousands of years ago. The documents themselves are modern, typed, government formatted. Somebody studied this before any of us heard a word about it. The problem is scale. Obsidian exists in specific locations. Alaska has some. Oregon, California, parts of Mexico. You can't manufacture it. You can't mass-produce weapons from it. There's no way to deliver it at the scale this would require.
So fire works on the dead. Obsidian works on the ones commanding the dead. And neither one can be deployed at the scale of what's coming.
That's correct. I want to be clear about what this means. This is not an Alaskan problem. It's not a Canadian problem. The front is continental. It will reach the lower 48. The only question is when. And the further south it pushes, the more people die. And the more dead there are to add to what's already coming.
Dr. Glover, thank you. That was Dr. Shireen Glover, climatologist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I want to stop here and read you something that just came across the wire. Canadian military has confirmed that a company of the Princess Patricia's Light Infantry, deployed to the Alaska Highway north of Watson Lake, has lost contact with command. Watson Lake is 400 miles south of Whitehorse. That's the front line as of tonight. The front is inside British Columbia. We'll continue live coverage through the night. If you have family in the Yukon or northern BC and you haven't heard from them, the Red Cross hotline number is on our website. This is Ned Royce, KFNX Anchorage.
This is Vance Bolton. I'm not yelling tonight. I'm done yelling. I've been yelling for 2 weeks, and it turns out I was right about all of it. And being right doesn't feel the way I thought it would. It feels like reading your own obituary. I have documents that were sent to me yesterday in a manila envelope with no return address. Postmark is D.C., not Juneau, not Alaska. Washington, D.C. Somebody inside the federal government put these in the mail. I'm going to read from them. I'm going to read them flat, the way they're written, because the language is damning enough without anything I could add to it. Document 1. Defense Intelligence Agency memorandum. Classification level is redacted. Date is 11 years ago. The subject line reads, preliminary assessment of subarctic anomalous entities. Designator White Walker, alternate designator the others. 11 years ago. 11 years before anyone drilled anything on the North Slope. They had a name for them. They had 2 names for them. The memo describes the entities as, quote, humanoid approximately 7 to 9 feet in height, presenting consistent cryokinetic manipulation of ambient temperature, end quote. It goes on. Quote, entities demonstrate coordinated tactical behavior, including flanking, encirclement, and selective targeting of heat sources, end quote. Coordinated, tactical. These aren't animals. These aren't zombies. The government has known for over a decade that these things think. It describes their language. They have a language. The document calls it scroth. is described as a series of sounds resembling cracking ice in rhythmic patterns. The same sound people have been hearing on the phone lines. Document 2, same agency, dated 8 years ago. This one is about the things in the sky. They call them draconic aerial entities, Class 2. The classification system implies there's a Class 1, but I don't have that document. They describe the wingspan at between 80 and 120 feet. They describe the thermal signature as exceeding 2,000 degrees at the point of exhalation. They note that the entities appear to hatch from sustained high-temperature conflagrations. Hatch. Their word, not mine. The government has been using the word hatch in classified documents for 8 years while telling the rest of us there's nothing in the sky. Document 3. This is the one that matters. It's an appendix. A list of known obsidian deposits in North America annotated with extraction feasibility notes. Newberry Caldera, Oregon. Glass Buttes, Oregon. Obsidian Cliff, Yellowstone. Cerro del Medio, New Mexico. Big Southern Butte, Idaho. There are 14 sites listed. Each one has a tonnage estimate and a note about road access. Somebody in the government mapped out where to get the one thing that kills these things, and they did it a decade before the rest of us knew there was anything to kill. They knew, and they let us drill on the North Slope anyway. They knew what was under the permafrost, and they let the oil companies punch a hole through the lid. They had the obsidian list. They had the threat assessment. They had the kill protocol, and they filed it in a cabinet, and they went back to approving drilling permits. I used to enjoy this, the whole thing, being the one who saw it coming, telling people who laughed at me that one day they'd stop laughing. They stopped laughing. And now I'm sitting here reading government files about monsters by candlelight because the power's out, and I don't feel vindicated. I feel sick. If anyone is listening, the obsidian sites are real. Oregon has the biggest deposits. Yellowstone has some. There are smaller deposits scattered across the West. Find it, break it, sharpen it. It's volcanic glass. It breaks into an edge sharper than steel. And when you put it into one of the tall white ones, they melt. That's in the file. They melt like ice in a furnace, and there's nothing left. This is Mance Bolton.
The Borealis Hour, Davos Pyke. Somewhere on the Alaska Highway in the Yukon Territory. I crossed the Canadian border about 6 hours ago. No callers, no relay, just me and the road and whatever's behind me. The border crossing was the strangest thing I've seen on this road, and I've seen a lot. Canadian agents in parkas standing in -40 waving cars through. One of them was handing out granola bars from a cardboard box. He looked at my truck and my transmitter and my coat hanger antenna, and he just nodded and waved me on. He must have done that 10,000 times that night. I don't know how long he stayed out there. The convoy broke apart about 2 hours south of the border. Fuel, that's all it took. The pumps at Destruction Bay were dry. The ones at Haines Junction had a line 3 miles long, and when people got to the front, they were told there was a 5-gallon limit. 5 gallons doesn't get you far at 15 miles an hour and -40. People started making choices. Some turned off onto side roads looking for fuel. Some pulled over and started walking. Some just stopped. I saw a man siphoning gas from a stalled car with a garden hose. Nobody said anything to him. The car was frosted shut. He was taking fuel from a dead car, and everybody understood. There's no law on this road anymore. There's just gas and distance. I passed a car about an hour ago. A sedan pulled over on the shoulder, engine off, lights off. The windows were frosted on the inside. I slowed down. I could see shapes inside. 3 of them. 2 in the front, 1 in the back. They weren't moving. I told myself they were sleeping. I told myself a lot of things as I drove past. About 20 minutes later, I checked my mirror, and I could see the sedan in the distance. The doors were open, all 4 of them, and the 3 people inside were standing in the road, standing still, facing south. Their eyes were blue. I could see it even from that far because the blue catches the light different than anything else. It's not a color you can mistake for something natural. I keep checking the mirror. The white line is back there. Benjamin described it from the air. A straight edge across the landscape where Alaska stops and something else begins. It's in my mirror now. It's closer than it was an hour ago. I'm moving south at 15 miles an hour, and it's gaining. The temperature has dropped 8 degrees since I started talking. A young woman walked into the cold tonight. I saw it happen. She was in the vehicle ahead of me, a pickup with 6 people in the cab. She opened the passenger door while the truck was moving, and she stepped out. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She walked off the road and into the trees like she was going home. The truck pulled over. The driver got out and called after her. He stood at the tree line for about a minute calling her name. I could hear him from my cab. His voice was the only sound on the whole highway. Nobody honked. Nobody yelled at him to move. Every car just sat there and waited for a man to give up on someone he loved. Then he got back in the truck and drove. 20 minutes later, she was standing at the edge of the road 2 miles south of where she went in, standing still, blue eyes, facing the convoy. The driver saw her. He didn't stop this time. He looked straight ahead and drove past her like she was a road sign. I know fireworks. I've seen it. Everybody on this road has seen it. But nobody is lighting fires anymore because of the dragon. Fire draws them, and fire draws it. There was a burn on the east side of the highway about an hour ago, maybe a mile off the road. A big one. I saw something banking toward it in the dark. Wings against the stars. It's still out there, circling the biggest heat source it can find. I can hear something outside the truck. That cracking sound, the one from Gilly's phone, the one from outside the studio window in Fairbanks. Mans called it scroth, said it was their language. I can hear it in the wind now. It comes and goes, like voices on a frequency. You can almost tune in. There's something worse about knowing its language. When it was just a sound, I could tell myself it was ice on the power lines. Now I know they're talking to each other. I know they're organizing. I know the sounds mean something, and the something is about us. So here's where we are. The dead are behind us. The dead are ahead of us, because anyone who dies on this road gets back up. The cold is gaining. The fires are off. The fuel is running out. And I'm still talking into a microphone because that's all I've ever been good at. I'm a radio man. I sit in a chair and I talk. The chair is a truck seat now, and the studio is a frozen highway, and the audience might be nobody. But talking is what I have, and I'm not stopping. Bran hasn't called. She was heading for Whitehorse with 13 people. Whitehorse is gone now. I don't know if she made it through before it fell or if she was still on the road when it happened. I don't know where Benjamin is. I don't know where Alias is, or Ed, or Talisa. I had callers. Now I've got names. I say into the dark and hope somebody hears. Good night. Keep driving. Don't stop.
Good evening, this is KFNX. I'm Ned Royce. We are broadcasting on emergency power from our Anchorage studio for what may be the last time from this building. If you're just joining us, here is what we know. The cold front has crossed the top of the North American continent along the Arctic. It did not follow the highways south. It went east across northern Canada, across the territories and the northern provinces in a matter of days. Edmonton, Alberta. Population 1 million. Communication with the city was lost at 6:14 a.m. Mountain Time. The last transmission from Edmonton was a CBC radio anchor who said the temperature had dropped 40 degrees in 20 minutes and something was moving through the river valley. That was the last thing anyone heard from a city of 1 million people. The front is now bleeding south on a front that stretches from the Pacific to Hudson Bay. Dr. Glover's propagation rule is holding exactly east-west along latitudes where winter already exists. The front moves fast. Going south, it must create its own cold first, so it pushes slower. But it is pushing, Reports of anomalous cold have been confirmed in northern Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Mira Dane is in Seattle. Mira, go ahead.
Ned, I'm in Seattle. Davos reached a working transmitter here 2 days ago. He thought he was safe. We all thought we were safe. The temperature in Seattle this morning was 12 degrees. Normal for this time of year is 45. It dropped 15 degrees between midnight and dawn. The forecast models don't explain it. Dr. Glover's model does. People in Seattle are watching this on television. They're seeing footage from the highway, footage from the convoy. The local stations are running it on a loop. Some of them are starting to pack. I can see moving trucks on the streets from my hotel window. A family across the street loaded a truck for 2 hours this morning. The grocery stores are empty. I went to 3 of them yesterday. The shelves were stripped. The parking lots were full, but the stores had nothing left. A woman was crying in the cereal aisle because there was no cereal. It's nowhere south of here that's far enough. People don't understand that yet. They think this is a weather event that they can drive away from. They saw us try that. It didn't work for us either.
Mira, thank you. Stay with us. I'm being told we have Colonel Sandor Payne on a secure line. Colonel Payne is a military analyst who has been advising this network since the first week of the crisis. Colonel, I'm going to ask you directly. What happened to the military response?
It failed. I'll give you the short version because the long version is classified and it wouldn't help you sleep. The 4 brigades the President deployed could not fly into Alaska because the weather grounded every aircraft. The C-17 sat on the tarmac at Joint Base Lewis McChord for 6 days. By the time the weather broke long enough for a window, Fairbanks was gone, and the front had moved south of the landing zones. We had 20,000 soldiers staged and ready to deploy into a theater that no longer existed by the time they were cleared to go. Ground forces engaged on the highway corridors. Incendiary weapons worked against the risen. Thermite, white phosphorus, vehicle-mounted flamethrowers. But every engagement produced casualties. And every casualty that wasn't burned switched sides within minutes. A company engages 200 risen, loses 8 soldiers, and now those 8 are walking toward the company's own line. The math doesn't work. You can't fight an enemy that recruits from your dead.
What about the Dragons, the aerial entities? Are they being engaged?
A Canadian CF-18 shot one down over Alberta 3 days ago. It was burning a column of the risen, thousands of them. It was the most effective weapon anyone had found against the dead, and we killed it. The pilot followed standing orders for an unidentified aerial threat. He did his job. The problem is the doctrine. The doctrine was written for a world where the things in the sky are the enemy. In this war, the things in the sky might be the only thing keeping the dead from overrunning everything south of the 50th parallel.
Colonel, are you telling me there's no military solution to this?
I'm telling you the military is fighting a war it wasn't built to fight. There's no front line to defend. The front is 1,000 miles wide and moving south. The enemy is the weather and the dead and things we don't have a field manual for. There are field reports of tall white figures directing the risen, coordinating them, flanking maneuvers, encirclement. These are not animals. They're moving units into position the way a general moves battalions on a map. Then the figures turn and walk north back into the cold as if they're done with the engagement. The risen do the killing. The tall ones do the thinking. We haven't killed a single one of the tall ones. We don't know if conventional weapons can.
Colonel Payne, thank you. That was Colonel Sandor Payne, military analyst and retired infantry officer. I want to stop here and read something that just came in. I'm reading it as it was handed to me. National Weather Service has issued an extreme cold warning for the entire Pacific Northwest. Seattle, Portland, and Vancouver are expected to see temperatures below 0 within 48 hours. This is not consistent with any known weather pattern. It is consistent with Dr. Glover's model. The front is here. It was already here before we arrived. This is KFNX. We'll continue live coverage for as long as we can. I'm Ned Royce.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is not a test. A national state of emergency has been declared for the continental United States, effective immediately. The following regions are placed under a mandatory movement order: the northern Great Plains, the upper Midwest, the northern Rocky Mountains. All residents of these regions are directed to move south toward designated shelters. Residents are advised of the following instructions. Do not travel north under any condition. Do not approach any person standing in open terrain. Do not attempt to recover persons who have succumbed to the cold. Report the location of any deceased person to authorities. Do not remain with the body. Do not engage or approach any unidentified aerial entity. Movement routing is as follows. Proceed to the nearest designated shelter. Transport will move in escorted groups only. Do not travel alone. Do not travel after dark. 1 bag per person. Service animals only. A curfew is in effect from dusk to dawn across the entire emergency zone. Yield to all military and emergency vehicles. Checkpoints are established on all major interstate highways. Have identification ready for inspection. Persons turned back at a checkpoint must comply without exception. Shelter managers will record the name of every person who arrives. Report missing household members at the point of arrival, and not before. Do not return for missing persons. Do not return for property. Authorities will account for all persons once the zone is secured. Extreme cold poses an immediate threat to life. Exposed skin will freeze within 2 minutes. If movement is not possible, shelter in place. Maintain a heat source. Remain indoors. Keep this frequency monitored for further instruction. This message will now repeat. The following message is transmitted at the request of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is not a test.
You're listening to the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke, broadcasting from a borrowed studio near Seattle. I have callers tonight. The relay is back up. Roderick patched into a repeater network in British Columbia, and we've got a signal again. 2 callers, both of them have called before, both of them are alive. I want to start with that because it matters more than it used to. Before I take the calls, Theon hasn't called. Theon Rivers, the angry one, the one who called early on and told me this was all government theater, he hasn't called in 3 shows. If anybody knows Theon or has heard from him, I'd like to know. That's all I've got. I'm putting his name on the air in case it helps somebody find him. Felisa, go ahead.
I'm in Portland. I left Anchorage when the hospital lost power. I drove for 4 days. I thought I was driving away from it. The ER at OHSU looks exactly like the one I left. The same people on the floor, the same blank faces, the same sound of somebody's grandmother moving around behind a locked door in the morgue. They asked me to work. I walked in with my Anchorage badge and they didn't even check it. They handed me a pair of gloves and pointed me to the triage line. A man came in with his son. The boy was maybe 10, and the father's arm was frostbitten. He said a woman at a gas station grabbed his arm and wouldn't let go. I've never treated frostbite that looked like that. The tissue around it was turning gray.
What happened to him?
I cleaned and dressed it. 2 hours later, the attending told me to check on him. His temperature was 91 and dropping. His skin was cold to the touch. The boy was sitting next to him, holding his hand, and the boy kept saying his dad's hand was getting colder. I'm not going to tell you what happened after that. The boy is fine. He's with a social worker. His father is in the morgue with the rest of them. In Anchorage, I locked 1 morgue. Here I've locked 2. The protocols are the same. Don't go in the room. Don't open the door. Listen for movement and write it in the log. There's a log now. We keep a log of how many dead people are moving around behind a locked door in a hospital basement.
How many staff do you have left?
11. There were 32 on shift when I got here. Most of them have gone home or stopped coming in. 3 of them are sleeping in the break room because they're too scared to drive home in the dark. We've got 11 people running an emergency room for a city of 700,000. The attending hasn't slept in 2 days. He keeps drinking coffee and checking the morgue door.
So, Lisa, thank you for calling. Thank you for staying. Ed, go ahead.
I made it. I got the truck all the way down. Through BC, through Washington. I'm in Oregon now. Pulled into a rest stop outside Eugene about an hour ago. It's 22 degrees here. It was 48 yesterday. The cold is coming south faster than anybody thought. The truck stop is full of people from Alaska. And BC and I can see it in their faces. They know. They've been through this already. A woman from Tok recognized me from the highway. She said she heard my CB on the Alkin when the Dragon came over. She said she burned her blankets that night, and she's been cold ever since. She asked me if I had a spare coat, and I gave her mine. The locals think it's a cold snap. They're buying bread and milk like it's a snow day. A woman at the counter was complaining about her heating bill. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and tell her what a heating bill looks like when the furnace stops working and the pipes freeze and the walls start growing frost on the inside. I tried to tell a guy at the gas pump what's coming. He looked at me like I was crazy. He said they don't get that kind of cold in Oregon. I told him nobody used to get that kind of cold. He walked away.
Are you going to keep going south?
Where? California? Mexico? How far south is far enough? I've been driving for a week. Every time I stop, the temperature is lower than the last place I left. I'm tired of running from something that's faster than me.
Yeah. I'm sitting in a studio that still has heat and running water and the lights work and the coffee machine is on. And I keep waiting for it to feel normal. It doesn't. It feels like a countdown. Every working heater is a clock running down to the moment it stops working. That's the show tonight. 2 people who survived Alaska calling from hospitals and truck stops in the lower 48 to tell me it followed them down. South isn't safe. South is just next. Fian, if you're listening, call in. Brienne, same. Benjamin, if you're still walking, I hope you found shelter. Alice, if the church is still standing, keep the boiler on. Good night.
This is KFNX with breaking news. I'm Ned Royce. At approximately 0400 hours Eastern Time this morning, the United States military detonated a nuclear weapon on American soil. The strike was east of Billings, Montana, on the front line where the largest concentration of risen had been reported. We are going to walk through what happened next, and I want to warn you that none of it went the way anyone hoped. Mira Dane has been monitoring military communications from our Seattle bureau. Mira, what do we know?
Ned, the weapon was a low-yield tactical nuclear device air-delivered. The target zone was a valley east of Billings, where satellite imagery showed an estimated 40,000 risen moving south in a column. The blast destroyed everything in the valley. For about an hour, the Pentagon believed it had worked. The column was gone. The satellite showed nothing moving in the strike zone. Then the cold came. Within 30 minutes of the detonation, the temperature in the strike zone dropped below any reading the sensors could take. The fallout cloud froze solid in the air and fell out of the sky as black radioactive snow. Monitoring stations 50 miles downwind recorded a temperature drop of 60 degrees in under an hour. And the dead started coming back. Not the same dead, new ones. The blast killed everyone within 15 miles of the detonation point. Ranchers who hadn't evacuated, families in shelters that weren't far enough away. 2 National Guard companies that were staging east of the valley for a follow-up operation. All of them got back up, every single one.
So the weapon that was supposed to stop them created more of them than it destroyed. And the people it killed to create those new ones were our own people. Civilians who thought they were far enough away. Soldiers who were waiting to go in after the blast.
That's what the reports indicate. The column coming south out of the strike zone is now estimated at over 60,000, and the fire from the detonation hatched another one. A third Dragon rose out of the blast site within 90 minutes of the strike.
Thank you, Mira. I have General Gregor Marsh on the line. General Marsh has been the military's point of contact throughout this crisis. General, I'm told you have a statement.
I do. I authorize the recommendation to employ a tactical nuclear weapon against the column in Montana. The recommendation was approved at the highest level and executed by the Air Force. The weapon performed as designed. The target was destroyed. What happened afterward was not anticipated by any model we had. I submitted my resignation this morning. It was not accepted because there is no one to hand my responsibilities to. The chain of command has gaps in it that did not exist 2 weeks ago. 3 of my staff officers are unaccounted for. The Secretary of Defense has not been reachable since yesterday. I remain in my position for the time being. I am telling you this because the people listening deserve to know who made the call that made things worse.
General, is there a military option left?
Not the kind you mean. Every weapon we have either doesn't work or makes the problem larger. Fire kills the risen but draws the aerial entities. Nuclear weapons kill everything in the blast radius and every casualty joins the enemy. Conventional forces lose soldiers who then fight for the other side. The fundamental problem has no military solution. I've spent my career believing there's always a military option. There isn't one here. We are retasking all remaining assets to evacuation and civilian protection. That's what the military is now. A bus service with guns.
I'm sorry. General, I'm being told the President is about to address the nation. This was not on our schedule tonight. We're going to the White House.
My fellow Americans, 3 days ago, at my direction, the armed forces of the United States conducted a nuclear strike in eastern Montana. I gave that order. The target was the largest concentration of the risen along the northern front, a section of the line east of Billings where we had lost the defense completely. 200,000 Americans were in the direct path of that advance, moving south at 20 miles a day. My military advisors, the top people, told me a strike at that yield could establish a thermal barrier and stop the advance. I made that call. For about 1 hour, it did what they said it would do. 1 hour. And then the cold came right back over that ground like we had never been there. And because of the blast, the casualties from the blast, our people, they became part of the problem. We have a worse situation now than we had before I gave that order. I am not going to stand here and blame my generals. They gave me their best assessment, and I believe they gave it in good faith. I made the decision. Frankly, it did not work. I want to be very straight with you. Over the past 4 weeks, every conventional option we had has been tried and has failed. Artillery did not hold the line. Armor could not operate in those temperatures. Air support was limited because this is not an enemy that takes cover or retreats. Fire was the one thing that worked, and every fire we set bought us hours, not days. We used the biggest one in the arsenal, and it was not enough. Those options are spent. That is a hard thing for a president to say, but it is the truth, and you deserve to hear it. But I want you to hear this part too. We are not done. I have people working right now, the best scientific and military minds in this country, on approaches that have not been tried, new ideas. I spoke with my team 2 hours ago, and some of what they are looking at is, frankly, things nobody would have considered a month ago. I am not going to go into details tonight because they are in development, and I am not going to promise you something I cannot deliver, but they are real. People are working on them around the clock, and I will have more to say when we have results. The old playbook is used up. We are working on a new one. The people who were inside that blast radius, those people are on me. I gave that order, and I have to live with what it did. But I want you to understand why I gave it. 200,000 Americans were behind that line, and the line was failing. If a hard call comes across this desk again, I will make it. That is what you put me here to do. Stay near your fires tonight. Hold on to the people next to you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
President Walter Hightower. He just told the country the playbook is used up. And then he told you people are working on a new one. I've never heard a president say either of those things on the air. The honesty was, it was real. I'm Ned Royce. Stay near your fires.
If you can hear my voice tonight, stop what you're doing for a minute. Just for a minute. My name is Father Amon Stark. I'm on a borrowed radio signal somewhere in the western part of this country. And I don't know how far this reaches, but I'm going to preach like it reaches you, because maybe it does. The church is cold tonight, and there are sounds outside that I'm choosing not to explain. I heard the president tonight. I heard him say he doesn't know what to do. I'm not here to talk about that. I've got something older than politics tonight. And I think some of you have been waiting to hear it, and I think some of you didn't know you were waiting. Let me tell you what I see from where I'm sitting. There's fire in the sky. There are things flying up there that I don't have a scientific word for. The dead are walking in the cold. And that's not a metaphor. That's what's happening on the roads north of here right now. Somebody just moved in the back pew. It's all right. That was the roof. And 3 days ago, your government lit a bomb on its own soil trying to stop it. And it didn't work. I don't understand it. I'm a country preacher from a town most of you never heard of. But I know my Bible. And my Bible has a verse for tonight. Isaiah chapter 43. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, and the flames will not set you ablaze. Listen to what that verse just did. It named both of them, the water and the fire, the cold that's killing from the north, and the fire that's burning in the sky. A man wrote those words thousands of years before any of us were born. He put the water and the fire in the same sentence as if he knew there'd be a night when both of them came at once. And the promise in that verse isn't that you get to go around them. You won't walk through them alone. There's a question underneath all of this. One some of you have been carrying around longer than this cold. Where do I stand with God? Not whether the body makes it through the night, where the soul goes if it doesn't. I think a lot of you know the answer you'd give, and it scares you worse than anything outside. I know, I've carried that too. Every one of us has wandered from the God who made us, and we know it. And we've been running from that knowing for a long time. Tonight, there's nowhere left to run from it. But God didn't leave you there. He came looking. 2,000 years ago, God put on flesh and walked into the worst of it. Not around it, through it. The same way that verse says you and I will walk through the water and the fire. Jesus went to a cross. He carried the weight of every wrong thing you and I ever did, and he died under it. And then, and here's the part that matters most tonight, he rose. I need you to hear me over what's happening outside this building right now. The dead are walking outside. I know that. But he walked out of that grave first. And his rising is a different thing entirely. Death had him for 3 days and couldn't keep him. And that means death doesn't get the last word tonight. Not over him, not over you. And if you're sitting there thinking, I've waited too long, I've done too much, it's too late for somebody like me. Let me tell you about the thief, a dying man hanging next to Jesus. No time left, no good deeds, nothing. And he turned his head and said, remember me. That's all he had, 2 words. And Jesus said to him, today you will be with me in paradise. Tonight, right where you are, in the car, in the shelter, in the dark. You can say it right now. Lord, I've gone my own way, and I'm sorry. I believe you died for me and you rose for me. Come into my life. Be my Lord. If you said that and you meant it, even whispered, then hear me. You belong to him. Romans chapter 8 says nothing in all creation can separate you from his love. Not death, not the cold or the fire in the sky or the things walking in the dark. Nothing. You are his, and he doesn't let go. I'm Father Amos Stark. I'll be on this signal as long as the power holds. Whatever's outside this church has been there since I started preaching. I'm not stopping. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. I'll be here.
This is Mance Bolton. I have someone with me tonight. His name is Dr. Barrick Mormont. He's a paleoclimatologist and a historian of what he calls deep antiquity. I found him because he found me. He heard my broadcast about the leaked files, and he sent me a letter, a handwritten letter. Nobody sends handwritten letters anymore. This man did.
Thank you for having me, Mance. I study climate events that don't appear in the geological record the way they should. Ice ages that arrived too fast. Warming periods that ended too abruptly. There's a pattern in the deep record that conventional science doesn't account for, and what's happening right now fits that pattern exactly.
Start at the beginning. What are these things?
There are two things, and they are not the same. The risen are dead humans reanimated by cold magic. They are puppets. They have no will. They follow the signal of whoever raised them. Lockers are something else entirely. They are sentient. They have language. They have tactics. They have a civilization, if you can call it that. And they were made...
Made? By who?
The oldest accounts refer to a people who came before. Not a nation, not a civilization in any way we'd recognize. Something older. They were losing a war against a newer, more aggressive species. Losing badly. And in desperation, they created a weapon. They took a living human being, and they drove a shard of obsidian into his chest. And they used blood magic to transform him into something that could fight for them. Something cold. Something that could raise the dead and freeze the air around it and walk through fire.
And they lost control of it.
They lost control of it immediately. The weapon developed its own will. It made more of itself. It turned on its creators, and it turned on the enemy, and it tried to freeze the entire world. The old texts call this the Long Night, a winter that lasted a generation. The sun didn't come up for years. People lived in caves and ate roots and forgot what the sky looked like.
How did they stop it?
Obsidian. The same material that was used to create them. The texts call it frozen fire. When you drive a blade of obsidian into one of the walkers, it dissolves, it melts. The reaction is instantaneous, and when a walker dies, every dead thing it raised falls down and stays down. Kill the rider and the army drops. That's the rule. That's the only rule that matters.
And the dragons?
The dragons are the world's answer to the cold. The last time the long night came, the dragons came with it. They hatched from the largest fires, and they burned the dead by the thousands. The texts are clear on this. The dragons are not our enemy. They are the immune response, the planet's way of fighting off a fever by running one of its own. The problem is that the immune response doesn't distinguish between infection and host. The fire burns everything.
In the old accounts, did people win?
The accounts never claim that people won. They claim that people survived. A hero with a burning sword. An alliance between the old people and the new. A wall of ice built across a continent to keep the walkers in the north. The record is of survival, not victory. The cold retreated. The dead stopped rising. The walkers went back to wherever they came from. But the texts are very careful to say that they were pushed back, not destroyed. They were still out there. They were always still out there.
And we drove through the lead.
That's one way to put it. The permafrost was the wall. It was always the wall. And we've been melting it for 100 years and drilling through what was left.
This is Mance Bolton. I don't have anything to add to that. What Dr. Mormont just told you is the oldest story in the world, and nobody remembered it in time. Winter came. That's the whole story. Winter came, and we forgot what it meant, and now we are dealing with it with fire and blood.
the Borealis Hour, Davos Pyke, broadcasting from somewhere south of Whitehorse on a repeater I found by accident. It's a ham relay mounted on a fire tower, and it's running on a car battery that somebody left up here before the roads closed. I don't know how long it lasts. I don't know if anyone can hear me. But the frequency is clear, and the mic works, and that's enough to do a show. If you're listening and you have a way to call, the frequency is 146.52. Alice, if you're out there, I heard your relay through a trucker about 4 hours ago. If you can reach this frequency, I'm here. Talisa, same goes for you. Ed, anybody, I'm here. I've got someone. Alice Frey, go ahead.
Davos, I can hear you. You're faint, but I can hear you. I'm at St. Matthew's in Prince George. We turned the church into a shelter 3 days ago. We've got 111 people as of this morning. 6 of them are children under 5. We've got a list on the wall. Everyone signs in. Everyone gets a number.
You're running the shelter?
Somebody had to. The pastor left on the second day, took his car, and headed south with his family. I don't blame him. He's got 3 kids. But the building was still here, and the boiler still worked, and there were people in the parking lot with nowhere else to go. So I opened the doors and started making lists. Who's here, what they need, what we have, how long it lasts.
How long does it last?
At current count, with what's in the kitchen and what people brought with them, about 9 days. If more people come, less. I've got 2 women rationing the food in 4-hour shifts. A man named Gerald, who was an electrician before all this, has the generator running on propane. He says we've got propane for about a week. After that, I don't know. But that's next week's problem, and this week's problem is keeping 111 people alive in a church that seats 200.
You prayed on this show once. You told me you were praying for all of us. Are you still praying?
Every morning before the others wake up. Not for rescue, not anymore. I pray that the food stretches. I pray that the boiler holds. I pray that the man who showed up last night with frostbite on both hands doesn't lose them. Prayer is a list too, Davos. It's just a list of things you can't do yourself that you're asking someone else to handle. I used to pray for big things. Now I pray for propane and bandages and one more day.
Stay on that frequency if you can. I'll try to reach you again tomorrow night. I've got another call coming through. Talisa Poole from Portland. Go ahead.
Davos, I'm here. I'm still at OHSU. We're down to 7 staff. 7. The rest either left or didn't come back from the roads. I've got a woman in room 4 who walked in from Gresham barefoot. Both feet are black. She carried her son for 3 miles. The boy is stable. Temperature 94 and climbing. I think he's going to make it. His mother's temp is 88. I've got warming blankets on her, but I don't have enough IV fluid to run 2 rewarming lines at once. So I'm alternating between them every 30 minutes. And I keep thinking about the math. The math of who gets the warm saline first. I became a nurse because I wanted to help people. Nobody told me I'd have to choose which one.
Talisa, how's the building holding? Is the power still on?
Generators on diesel. We've got maybe 2 days of fuel. The water pressure dropped yesterday and it hasn't come back. We're melting snow for drinking water in a hospital. Davos, I want to tell you about a patient who came in this morning. He was a lineman for Portland General. He'd been out on the poles trying to restore power to the east side, and he said the ice on the lines was 2 inches thick and growing while he watched. He said he could hear it forming. He said it sounded like...
Talisa? Talisa, are you there? The line is dead. Not the ice sound. Not the cracking. Just dead. The relay between Portland and wherever I am failed. A repeater went down, or a tower froze, or a cable snapped under the ice. I don't know which one, and it doesn't matter. The infrastructure between me and Talisa Poole doesn't exist anymore. She was telling me about a lineman and the ice on the power lines, and the line went dead in the middle of a sentence, and I don't know if she's alive or not. I used to have a board full of callers, and Tormund, Gilly, Rob, Theon, now Talisa. One by one, the voices go away, and I'm the one who has to keep talking after they're gone. That's 5 people who called this show and aren't calling anymore. 5 frequencies that go to static when I try them. That's the job. The host stays on. The host keeps the air alive. Even when there's nobody left on the other end of the line, the host keeps talking because silence means the show is over. And the show being over means nobody's listening. And nobody listening means we're alone. Alice is in a church keeping 111 people alive on lists and propane. That's what faith looks like when the world is ending. It looks like work. Good night. 146.52. I'll be here.
Good evening. This is KFNX. I'm Ned Royce. We are broadcasting from an emergency relay site south of our former Seattle location. The Anchorage studio is gone. The Seattle studio went dark 36 hours ago when the temperature inside the building dropped below the operating range of our equipment. And if you're just joining us, here is what we know tonight. The cold front has reached the northern tier of the continental United States. Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all reporting temperatures between -20 and -40. Power infrastructure across these states is failing at a rate no grid was built to handle. Transmission lines are sheathed in ice. Substations are shutting down faster than crews can reach them. The National Guard has been deployed in 14 states. In most of those states, the Guard is not fighting. It is evacuating. But that is not the lead story tonight. The lead story tonight is the Dragons. We have satellite imagery confirmed by 3 independent sources showing what the Dragons are doing. And what the Dragons are doing changes everything we thought we understood about this crisis. There are fires burning across the northern United States tonight. Some are wildfires started by downed power lines. Some are fuel depots that ruptured in the cold. Some were set deliberately by people who learned on the highway that fire holds the dead back. The Dragons are gathering at every one of them. Not circling above, gathering, landing near the fire lines, and staying in Butte, Montana. A fuel storage facility has been burning for 4 days. 3 Dragons have been on the ground within a half mile of the blaze since Tuesday. They have not moved. They are feeding on the heat. Here is the part that matters. The satellite imagery shows the cold front approaching the Butte fire from the northwest. In every other location, the front has advanced at a steady rate of approximately 30 miles per day. At Butte, the front stopped. It reached a line roughly 2 miles from the nearest Dragon, and it did not cross. The thermal signature of the fire zone and the Dragons within it is holding the cold at bay. The front has split around it the way water splits around a stone in a river. I'm going to bring in Dr. Shireen Glover. She is a climatologist who has been this network's primary scientific source throughout the crisis. Dr. Glover, what are we looking at?
The Dragons are territorial about heat. Every fire site where a Dragon has settled shows the same pattern in the satellite data. The cold front advances to a perimeter and stops. Inside that perimeter, the temperature is elevated and the risen are absent. The Dragons are not defending us. They are defending their heat source. But the effect is the same. Where a Dragon sits, the cold does not pass and the dead do not walk.
We have a report from a National Guard spotter in western Montana. I'm going to read it as it was filed. Quote, at 0430 hours, I observed 2 of the tall white figures advancing along the ridgeline toward the fire perimeter at Garrison Junction. 3 Risen were moving ahead of them in a standard scouting formation. The largest Dragon on the south side of the fire zone lifted off from the ground and intercepted the lead figure. Contact was less than 2 seconds. The figure dissolved on impact. It did not fall, it came apart. End quote. The report continues. Quote, when the first figure dissolved, the 3 Risen ahead of it dropped simultaneously. They did not stagger, they did not slow, they dropped as though their strings had been cut. The second figure turned north and retreated. The Dragon did not pursue. End quote. Dr. Glover, I need you to tell our audience what that means.
It means a wind condition exists. The Risen are not autonomous. They are controlled. Each walker maintains a network of Risen. When you destroy the walker, the network collapses. Every body that walker raised falls and does not rise again. The Dragons can reach the walkers. Conventional weapons could not. Dragonfire dissolves them the way the leaked document said obsidian does. The mechanism appears to be the same. Extreme heat applied directly to the walker's body.
One more thing from this report. The Dragon that was shot down over Alberta 2 weeks ago. The one Canadian forces engaged while it was burning a column of risen, that Dragon has not been accounted for. No wreckage has been found, no thermal signature detected. It's either dead and buried under ice, or it survived and went somewhere, and nobody knows which. Dr. Glover, I want to ask you something directly, and I want you to answer it for the people who are still listening. What should we do?
Stop fighting the fires. I know what that sounds like. Cities are burning. People's homes are burning. The instinct is to save what you can. But the burning places are the only places holding. The fire zones are where the dragons settle, and where the dragons settle is where the cold stops. The military's priority should not be suppression. It should be fuel. Get fuel to the burn zones. Feed the fires. Let them burn as long and as hot as they can. Let the dragons claim territory, because their territory is our territory right now. The only ground we hold is the ground they're sitting on.
You're asking us to let the country burn?
I'm asking you to choose which way to lose. We can fight the fires and let the cold take everything, or we can let the fires burn and hold the ground the dragons give us. There is no option where we win and keep what we had. That option ended when the front crossed the border. The choice now is between losing everything and losing most of it. I'm telling you the science says let it burn.
Dr. Shireen Glover. That was her final appearance on this network. I'm going to let those words stand without commentary because I don't have any that would be useful. This is KFNX. I'm Ned Royce. We are still on the air. Stay near the fire. Stay near the light.
The Borealis Hour. Davos Pyke. I don't know where I am tonight. Somewhere in British Columbia, south of the fire tower, south of the relay. I found a rest stop with a working outlet, and I'm running the rig off building power for the first time in 3 days. The vending machines are smashed open and empty. Somebody wrote south on the bathroom mirror in marker. That's all, just the word and an arrow. No live callers. The repeater chain is broken in too many places. But I have 2 messages that came through the relay network before it went down, and I'm going to read them. The first one is from Benjamin Storm. Benjamin has been on this show since the beginning. He flew spotting runs over the North Slope when nobody else would go up. He landed his plane on the Dalton Highway and walked south through country that was already gone. His message came through a ham operator in Whitehorse who picked it up and bounced it south through 2 other stations before it reached me. I'm reading it as it was relayed. Benjamin says, I found a Cessna 172 at a strip north of Watson Lake. Owner dead in the hangar, fuel at 3/4. I filed a flight plan with nobody because there's nobody to file with. I'm going to fly spotting runs along the front and radio what I see to any frequency that answers. The front is a wall now. I could see it from the ground. From the air, I'll be able to see how deep it goes and whether there are gaps. If there are gaps, people need to know where they are. He goes on, Benjamin says, I know what I'm flying into. I saw it from the ground. I saw what it does to people, and I saw what it does to towns, and I saw the villages from the air where everybody was standing in the streets facing south. I'm a pilot. This is what I do. I go up and I look and I come back and I tell people what I saw. That's the whole job. I'll keep doing it as long as the fuel lasts and the engine turns over. Last line. Benjamin says, tell Davos I said clear skies. That's a pilot thing. You say it when you're closing out. End of message. Clear skies, Benjamin. I don't know if he's still up there. The message was relayed 48 hours ago. A lot can happen in 48 hours. But as of 2 days ago, Benjamin Storm was flying a dead man's Cessna into the worst weather on the planet because that's what pilots do. He saw this from the ground first. He walked through towns where the snow was up to the windows and the doors were open and nobody was inside. He told me about it on the air. The villages where everybody was standing in the road facing south with blue eyes. He saw that from 3,000 feet. He landed and he walked, and now he's going back up. He knows what's waiting at altitude, and he's going anyway. The second message is from Brienne Cassell. Brienne called this show early on. She was practical, she was clear, she asked questions the rest of us weren't asking yet. She was heading for Whitehorse with 13 people when communication failed and I lost her. She's alive. Brienne Cassell is alive. Her message came through the same relay, a different ham operator, bounced through 3 stations. She didn't make it to Whitehorse. Whitehorse fell before she got there. She turned her group south and picked up more people on the highway. She's got about 40 now. Brian says, "We heard the news about the burn zones. We're heading for one. There's a fuel depot fire south of Prince George that has at least 2 dragons on the satellite images the guard was passing around. We've got 4 vehicles, 3 of them running. The 4th we're towing for parts. We've got enough gas for about 150 miles and the fire is 120 away. The math works if nothing goes wrong. Something will go wrong. We'll figure it out when it does." Brienne says, "I'll call when we get there." End of message. I don't know if she made it. The relay went down after those 2 messages, and I haven't been able to raise anyone on any frequency since. But Brienne is leading 40 people toward a burning fuel depot guarded by dragons because the burning places are the ones holding. That's the world now. The safe places are the places on fire. She said she'd call when she got there. She's the kind of person who does what she says she'll do. I've been listening for her on every frequency I can reach. So far, nothing but static. But I'm still listening. So that's what I've got tonight. 1 acceptance and 1 survivor still moving. Benjamin going up into the cold because looking is what he does. Brienne going south toward the fire because leading is what she does. I've lost Tormund, I've lost Gilly, I've lost Rob. Theon disappeared. Talisa's line went dead. But Benjamin is in the air, and Brienne is on the road, and Alice is in a church with 111 people and a list. That's not nothing. That's 3 voices. I haven't lost yet. Good night. Wherever you are, whatever you're burning, keep it lit. The fire is the only wall we've got left, and the wall holds as long as the fire does. The Borealis hour will be back when I find a signal, 146.52. I'll be listening even when I can't talk.
This is Bran Waters. I don't know if this is the last episode. I've said that before and it wasn't true, so I'll just say it might be and leave it there. One day in den also syntetum sodin Thomas linear mastis and mon Vietnam then beam fetoming that them manis. The news network is failing. The stations that used to carry Dr. Shireen Glover's analysis are off the air one by one. So she came here. She came to a podcast hosted by a man who makes fun of things for a living, because this is where the listeners are now. Before we start, I owe my audience something. I had Dr. Jorah Flowers on this show. Early on, when the first dragon sighting came in, I had a man on my show to laugh at it, to debunk it, to call the people who saw it hysterical and uninformed. Jorah Flowers was wrong. I was wrong for having him on, and I was wrong for laughing along with him. I built a career on skepticism, and I was skeptical of the thing that turned out to be real, and people who were listening to me instead of looking at the sky lost time they didn't have. So here's what I'm doing about it. Got the one person who got it right from the beginning, and I'm going to let her talk. Dr. Glover, tell them what's happening. Plain language, like you're explaining it to somebody who missed everything up to now.
The cold moves east and west along latitudes where winter already exists. It moves fast that direction because the conditions are already right. Going south, it has to create its own cold first. It pushes the temperature down ahead of itself, mile by mile. That's slower. It gives people time to move. Not much time, but some. The dragons are heat-seeking creatures that hatch from large fires. They settle on fire zones and they hold territory around those fires. Inside that territory, the cold stops. The risen do not enter it. The walkers avoid it.
So the fires are good? The things I spent my first episode calling a hoax are actually saving people?
The fires are the only thing saving people right now. Every city that has a sustained burn with at least one dragon has a pocket of warmth around it where people are surviving. The military has confirmed this at 6 sites. Butte, Billings, Bismarck, Duluth, Sault Ste. Marie, Spokane. The places that put out their fires are the places that fell.
What does a burn zone look like from the ground? I've seen the satellite images. I want to know what a person standing in one sees.
I spoke with a National Guard sergeant in Butte 2 days ago by relay. He said the dragon is sitting on the south end of the copper pit. It hasn't moved in 72 hours. The ground around it is warm enough that the snow has melted in a ring about a mile across. People are living in that ring. They've set up tents and tarps in parking lots. The Guard is distributing whatever food they can find. The temperature inside the ring is about 35 degrees. Outside, beyond the edge, it's -40.
People living in the heat shadow of a dragon in a copper mine. That's where we are as a species. Tell them about obsidian, tell them the part about how to kill the tall ones.
The walkers dissolve on contact with obsidian, volcanic glass. It occurs naturally across the western United States and in a handful of sites globally. The mechanism is the same as dragon fire. The material is a form of frozen fire. It was the original weapon in the old accounts, long before the dragons. When a walker is killed, every body it raised drops. That's been confirmed 3 times now in field reports. Kill one walker, and you may drop hundreds or thousands of risen in a single stroke.
Where do people get obsidian? If somebody's listening to this in Oregon or Montana or whatever, and they want to go find some, where do they go?
Glass Buttes in central Oregon is the largest accessible deposit in the Pacific Northwest. Newberry Crater, also in Oregon. Yellowstone has significant deposits, but access is uncertain. In California, the Coso Range and Napa Valley. The leaked DIA documents that Mance Bolton read on his show listed 14 sites with tonnage estimates and road access ratings. Those documents are genuine. The government surveyed these deposits years ago. They knew what obsidian was for. They just didn't tell anyone.
So we have a weapon. Obsidian kills the walkers. The dragons kill the walkers. There's a way to fight back.
There's a way to survive. Fighting back implies an offensive, and we don't have the infrastructure for an offensive. The power grid is failing across the northern states. Communication is fragmented. The military is operating in small units without central coordination in most of the affected zones. What we have is knowledge. Obsidian works. Fire works. The dragons are not our enemy. If people can get to a burn zone and stay near the heat, they have a chance. If they can find obsidian, they have a weapon that works. Those are the 2 things I can tell you that are true.
I want to ask you something that isn't scientific. You don't have to answer it. No, does this feel like something that's happened before?
The geological record has anomalies that match. Rapid cooling events followed by intense burning, followed by recovery. They're in the ice cores, they're in the sediment layers. They happen on a cycle that's too irregular to be orbital and too large to be volcanic. Dr. Mormont, the historian who appeared on Mance Bolton's show, has identified accounts from oral traditions on 6 continents describing the same sequence. The cold comes, the dead rise, the fire answers. It's the same story told in different languages across thousands of years.
2 ancient things fighting through the human world. That's what it feels like. We're the ground it's happening on. We're the thing they're fighting over. Or we're just in the way, I can't tell which. I keep thinking about Davos Pyke out there on the highway, broadcasting from a fire tower with a car battery, a man who hosts a late-night radio show about the unexplained, and the unexplained showed up and took his studio and his callers and his city, and he's still doing the show. From a truck, in the dark, with nobody on the other end. If that's not the human race in miniature, I don't know what is.
The old accounts suggest we're both. The walkers were made from a human being. The dragons hatch from our fires. We're the material. Both sides of this use us to exist, and both sides would continue without us. But every account that survives was written by a person. That means a person survived to write it. That's all the hope I have to offer, but it's real hope, and it's backed by evidence.
I got an email 3 days ago, back when email still worked. It was from a listener in Bend, Oregon. She said she drove to Glass Buttes with her husband in a pickup truck. They filled the bed with obsidian in about 4 hours. She said they brought it back to a National Guard checkpoint and the soldiers didn't know what to do with it. She wrote to me because she wanted to know if it was real, if obsidian would actually work. I didn't write back in time. I wish I had.
It's real. If she's listening now, tell her it's real. Tell her to take it to the perimeter of the nearest burn zone. The military will know what to do with it now. 3 field confirmations means the information has reached the command structure. And tell her to bring more.
Okay, that's where we are. I want to thank my audience. You've been with me through a lot of bad takes and some good ones. I started this show to poke holes in things people believed, and the biggest hole turned out to be in what I believe myself. I'm not going to promise another episode. Every time somebody promises another episode on this frequency, it feels like a dare. So I'll just say that if the mic works and the signal holds and I've got something worth saying, I'll be here. And if not, then this was the one where I finally got it right.
Good evening. I'm Ned Royce. The cold reached our relocated facility this afternoon, and I've been watching the building fail around me for 3 hours. 3 generators down since 6. We're on the last one, and I can hear it struggling from here. The studio lights went 20 minutes ago. The camera's an hour before that. This is radio now. I can see my breath in the studio. When this broadcast ends, the network ends with it. Not for effect. The power's going. We moved south 3 weeks ago when the main studio lost heat, and now this building's failing the same way. There's nobody left to gather the news and nowhere left to send it from. So I'll say this once. This is the last broadcast. After tonight, there's no more. Here's where things stand, as best we know them. The front made its deepest push south overnight. Omaha fell. Not evacuated, not losing power, not under advisory, gone. We got wire footage 40 minutes ago from a camera still running on building power after the city went. I need to tell you what's on it, because you have a right to know what's coming south. The Risen moved through the streets first, hundreds of them, stumbling the way they do. And then the cold ones walked in behind them, walking, not running, in no hurry at all, mist rolling out ahead of them like they were bringing their own weather. The camera caught one of them turning toward the lens. It looked at the camera for 2 full seconds and turned away. It knew the camera was there. It didn't care. The fires still hold their corridors. People are alive in those corridors, under the dragons, exactly as Dr. Glover said they'd be. Every burn zone that's still lit has people in it. Denver's dark. Kansas City went off the wire an hour ago. But the dark ground between those corridors belongs to them now. And every hour the front pushes further south, and we're running out of country. Mira Dane has been my eyes this whole month in every terrible place it took us. Mira, one last time.
I'm at the fire, Ned. 60 miles south of you, in a camp that's become something between a town and a miracle. Thousands of people, more arriving every hour. 2 dragons overhead, turning slow circles above the heat. They're tearing down buildings for fuel now, feeding the fire on purpose, keeping it alive because the fire keeps everything else alive. A woman walked in an hour ago carrying a child, barefoot, and the first thing somebody did was give her shoes. I'm warm, Ned. First time in a month. I can see the sky to the north from here. Something's changed tonight. The whole horizon is lit up from underneath, red, all along the edge. And there's movement up there I've never seen before. Wings, I think. Dozens of them, maybe more. I don't know what it means. Back to you, Ned. One last time, back to you.
Miara, you went into every place I was scared to send you, and you brought the truth back every time. That night on the Alcan, past Beaver Creek, when the feed cut to nothing for 40 seconds and I didn't know if you were still there, you were, every time. I'm glad you're warm, so go stay that way. To the people you never heard, the engineers who stayed when the heat went, Davis, the sound guy, who was supposed to leave 2 hours ago and is still standing against the wall with his coat on, holding the transmitter cable together because the cold cracked the housing, to producers who kept handing me copy in a building below freezing. Thank you. We just lost the satellite uplink, local transmitter now, however long that holds. 2 minutes left on the generator. Back at the start of all this, a warm night in September I'd give anything to have back. I told you I was driving down to see my sister that weekend. I never made that drive. The story started and I stayed at the desk because that's the job. Her name is Jane. Coffee in the morning and the same argument about the truck. That's what we had planned. Jane, I'm sorry I picked the desk, but I'm not going to spend what's left of this broadcast on the things I didn't do. The desk taught me one thing this month. Information keeps people alive. So my last act behind this microphone isn't a goodbye. It's the most useful thing I can still give you. Here are the burn corridors, and if you're still moving tonight, go to the nearest one. Tulsa and Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, Lubbock and El Paso in Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Memphis for anyone east of the river. The Gulf Coast from Houston to Pensacola still has fire and dragons over it. Go to the heat. The heat is where the living are. I'm going to read those again, slowly. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Lubbock and El Paso, both Texas. Phoenix, Arizona. Memphis, Tennessee. The Gulf Corridor. Houston through Pensacola. Find the fire and walk toward it. Walk toward it tonight. If you're hearing this by flashlight, or you've got those names memorized, or you know somebody without a radio tonight, go tell them where the fire is. Knock on their door and read them the list. If you can't walk, tell the person next to you. That's my last assignment to anyone with a pencil and a pair of legs. Pass it on. I'm Ned Royce. Jane, find a fire. Your big brother loved you more than he ever once drove 4 hours to say. This has been the news. Hold on. The Wire. Every relay along the front is reporting the same thing tonight. The sky is filling with wings. More of them than anyone has counted, from every direction, moving north. All of them moving north.
KL7RQ Flint. Calling any station southbound relay. If you're monitoring this, copy. The band is quiet tonight. Quieter than it's been since November. Lost the Yukon repeater about 2 hours ago. The Alberta stations I've been working with have been fading in and out all night. Weak signals, short windows. Like someone is turning the volume down one piece at a time. Then VE6 Alberta came through, loud, louder than he's been all week. He was talking fast, not really a panic, not fear, the kind of fast where someone knows they don't have much time and they're trying to get every word out before the signal disappears. He said there was something in the sky ahead of the front, something that was moving south, and it wasn't one of ours. I asked him to repeat. He did. He said it had wings, wide wings, and pale. He said the cold was worse underneath it, not warmer, colder. Everything else we've seen in the sky pushes heat away or leaves some kind of disturbance behind. He said this thing was different. It carried the cold with it, like the air itself was following it. Then he said the eyes were blue. The joints where the wings connected were blue as well, like they were lit from the inside. And then all of a sudden, the reports started to stack. I was hearing from Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, different operators, different equipment, no contact between them, but the same picture kept forming. A thing in the sky ahead of the front, wings spanning too wide to measure from the ground. Color shifting between pale and white like old ice under low light. blue at the eyes, blue at the joints of wings, and a temperature drop wherever it passed, a moving trail of coal cutting south through the air. Then came the part none of them agreed on at the time, but none of them could ignore. Something was riding it. It was tall, upright, like a person on horseback, except the mount was the size of a building, and on its head something catching the light. It appeared to be a crown, or something close to one anyway. Below it, the ground reports diverged in detail, but not in its meaning. The risen underneath it. Not dozens, not small groups we've been logging on the relay all season. He wouldn't put a number on it. Just said that the ground was dark with him, moving in a column as far south as he could see. The column didn't appear to thin. Every fire it passed over went dark. Burns that have been holding for weeks outside Saskatoon, gone under it like somebody blew them out. I then keyed the microphone twice. It didn't transmit, just sat there, pencil in my hand. I was trying to decide if I was really about to say this over an open frequency. 3 stations, 3 directions, and 3 people who never spoke to each other, all describing the same thing. So I'm going to read this exactly as it came in, and I hope, for the first time since I started logging these calls, I really hope I'm wrong. Something is moving through the sky ahead of the front. It has wings, white or pale depending on who saw it. Its eyes and joints of its wings were glowing blue. It carries cold with it instead of heat. There is something riding on its back, something tall, something wearing what one station described as a crown. Below it, the risen are moving in numbers nobody was willing to count, and every fire in its path appears to go dark. That's the relay. The frequency has been silent since I finished reading it. I don't know if that's because nobody heard me or because nobody is left to answer. KL7RQ, calling any station south of the front. Any station south, if you hear me, please respond. I've been calling for 10 minutes. Nothing. KL7RQ, standing by and hoping to hear.
This is Davos Pyke, the Borealis Hour, broadcasting from my car on a ridge line about 40 miles north of the front. Engines running for the heater. The ham patch is wired through the dash, which means you're hearing me through at least 3 relays in a car stereo I've been holding together with tape since Thanksgiving. If the signal sounds rough tonight, that's because everything sounds rough tonight. I've been parking up here since the valley went dark, and it's the best line of sight I've got. Below me is the valley, and I've been trying to tell you what's in it for the last 10 minutes. And I keep starting and I keep stopping. The words that make sense for 100 don't work for 1,000, and the words for 1,000 don't work for what's down there. It's not an army, not the way anybody means when they say that word on the radio. It's the ground itself moving south. The risen are filling the valley floor from the tree line on my left to the ridge on the far side, and they go back north as far as the binoculars can reach. I stopped trying to estimate a number about 5 minutes ago. They're moving together, all of them at the same pace, like one thing. There's no sound from them. The only sound is the ice underneath, cracking when they step, and from up here it comes as a kind of low, continuous breaking. The big ones are spaced through the column. The ones the reports call the walkers, the tall ones, the cold ones. The risen move around them the way water moves around rocks in a current. When one of the tall ones stops, the risen around it stop. I watched that happen 3 times in the last 15 minutes, and it's the same every time. I've been doing this show for 4 months, People called in and told me about 2 risen in their yard, 5 on the highway, a dozen in a field outside Whitehorse. Those numbers scared us. What's in the valley tonight makes those numbers a quiet Tuesday. I don't know where they're going, but they're all headed south, and there's nothing between them and the burn corridors except open ground. Above them, circling, there's something that 3 relay stations tried to describe last night on the band. I heard those reports. I didn't relay them because I didn't know what to do with them, and because the man who did relay them sounded as scared as I've ever heard a voice on the air. I'm looking at it now, pale wings, blue at the joints. It's real. I'm not going to describe it any more than that. 3 stations did that last night, and they said it better than I could right now. What I'll add is what I can see from up here that they couldn't. Something's riding it. The risen below are moving with it, and every fire I could see to the south an hour ago has gone dark along its path. Gas gauge says a quarter tank. I did the math while I was driving up here, and I know how it comes out, and I'm going to tell you because I've been straight with you all season. The fuel gives me maybe 3 hours of heat. The battery's going to run the transmitter for less than that. This is probably the last Borealis hour, and I'm saying that on the air because you deserve to hear it from me and not figure it out when the signal drops. I've been thinking about what to do with whatever time I've got left on this transmitter. There's a list of things I could tell you, safe places, frequencies that might still carry traffic. But Ned Royce already gave you that list, and he did it better than I would. I'm a talk show host in a truck, so I'll keep talking until the battery says otherwise. Thank you. I've been thinking about how to say that for about an hour, and the only version that makes sense is the plain one. Everybody who called in, everybody who listened on a bad night, everybody who sat in a cold room and relayed a signal so a talk show could keep going. You kept this going. Not me, not the radio. I'm not going to read names because I don't have enough battery for the number of names I'd need to read. You know who you are. The woman in Dawson Creek who called every Thursday to check on the people south of her. The man in Whitehorse who patched signals through his garage for 2 months straight. Every person who picked up a phone and called into a talk show that's been running out of a truck since September. This has been the Borealis Hour. I'm Davos Pyke. We started on a warm night in September when the phones wouldn't stop ringing. And I've been proud of every hour since, even the ones that scared me. I don't know if anyone picks up this frequency after I'm gone, but if you do, keep talking. Good night, wherever you are, and stay near the... Hold on. Something just changed in the sky to the south. I can see wings coming low out of the burn corridors, fast, and I'm trying to count them and I can't. They're coming from every direction, south and east and west, all pointed at the valley. There are hundreds of them, and I can hear them from up here. They're over the valley. The first ones just hit the column and it's fire. The whole front, dragon fire on the risen and the cold cracking back. And I can hear both from up here. The car's shaking. I can feel the heat through the glass and the cold through the floor at the same time. And the sky is, everything is lit. Everything,
This is KFNX. I'm Ned Royce. We are back on the air. 3 days ago, I signed off what I said was the final broadcast of this network. I was wrong. A ham relay operator in southern Oregon found our frequency and patched us into a chain that reaches from here to a satellite uplink station in Sacramento that is running on solar panels. We have a signal. It is weak and it may not last, but we are broadcasting and I have something to report. The battle that Davos Pyke was describing when his transmission cut off 3 nights ago has been confirmed by satellite imagery, ground reports, and military relay. What happened in that valley in northern Oregon was the largest engagement between the fire dragons and the cold front since the crisis began. Multiple sources confirm the following sequence of events. The fire dragons converged from burn zones across the western United States. Satellite tracking counted over 160 individual heat signatures moving north in the hours before the engagement. They came from Montana, from Oregon, from California, from as far east as Minnesota. They hit the risen column in the Ice Dragon at approximately 3:40 a.m. Pacific time. Davos Pyke's transmission ended at 3:42. The Pale Dragon went down first. Satellite thermal imagery shows a concentrated heat event at 3:51 a.m. consistent with multiple fire dragons engaging a single cold signature target. The Pale Dragon's thermal signature disappeared at 3:53. When it went down, the rider went with it. What happened next is the most important thing I have ever reported. The risen dropped. Not in the valley, everywhere. Mira Dane has been gathering field reports. Mira, go ahead.
At 3:53 a.m. Pacific, risen across the entire affected zone dropped simultaneously. A military patrol in eastern Washington reported a column of approximately 800 risen collapsing mid-stride. Everybody fell at the same moment. None of them moved again. A National Guard unit in Duluth reported the same thing. A shelter in Bismarck, a convoy on Interstate 90 in Montana, all at the same time. The same minute the rider's signature disappeared from the satellite. The walkers dissolved. Field reports describe the same thing Dr. Glover's model predicted. When the master fell, the walkers below it came apart. Some reports say they melted. Some say they shattered. A guard sergeant in Helena said the one he was watching turned to ice and then to water and then to nothing in about 4 seconds. When the walkers went, every risen they controlled dropped. The whole network collapsed from the top down. Rider to walkers to risen, all of it in under a minute.
Thank you, Mira. The cold is breaking. I want to be careful about how I say that, because careful is what we owe you after everything you've heard on this frequency. The temperature in our location has risen 22 degrees in 3 days. Reports from across the northern states show the same trend. The anomalous cold is retreating northward at roughly the same rate it advanced south. The winter, as a threat to the continent, appears to be ending. I need to say something about what this cost. We do not have reliable casualty figures. We may never have reliable casualty figures. Anchorage is empty, Fairbanks is empty, Edmonton is empty. Whitehorse, Watson Lake, Juneau, every community north of the 55th parallel is either destroyed or abandoned. South of that, the numbers are fragments. The Red Cross estimates at least 200,000 dead in Alaska alone. The Canadian government, what's left of it, has not released any figures. The European numbers are coming in now, and they are worse.
Ned, I want to add something. I drove through a town this morning that was in the path of the front. I won't say which one. The bodies are everywhere, in cars, in houses, on the sidewalks. Some of them are risen that fell when the network collapsed. You can tell because they're standing up or mid-step. They just stopped and fell where they were. Some of them are people who froze. They're in their beds. They're in their kitchens. There's a school with the doors open and small coats on the hooks and nobody inside. This morning cost us everything we had, and what we bought with it was the right to keep going.
The dragons remain. There are thousands of them now. They are settling on warm places across the northern hemisphere. They are not hostile to people. They are not friendly to people. They are indifferent. A field observer in Spokane reports green grass growing in December in a circle around a dragon that has been sitting on the same hillside for 4 days. The world that comes next has dragons in it. That is a fact we will have to learn to live with. And given what they just did for us, I think we can. We don't know the status of Davos Pyke. His transmission was cut at 3:42 a.m., 9 minutes before the rider fell. He was on a ridgeline in the middle of the engagement. We have no signal from his frequency. We have no relay report. I've known Davos for 15 years. He started in late-night radio talking about lights in the sky and sounds in the woods. And he ended up being the most important voice in Alaska because he was the only one who kept the mic on. He didn't have credentials. He didn't have a newsroom. He had a chair and a microphone, and he refused to stop talking. If he's alive, he'll find a frequency. He always has. This is KFNX. I'm Ned Royce. It is morning. We are still here.
This is Dr. Shireen Glover, broadcasting on 7.215 megahertz, Wednesday, June 11th. Readings follow. If you're hearing this for the first time, I keep a log of conditions from the monitoring stations that are still reporting across the northern belt. I read it on this frequency every Wednesday at 8 p.m. The broadcast infrastructure that used to carry this information is gone, so we do it this way now. Temperatures across all reporting stations are within normal range for June. Summer arrived on schedule. Crops are in the ground in the northern plains, the Great Lakes region, and most of New England. The winter left no measurable trace of itself that survives direct sunlight, and I've been asked about that specifically. The frost lines, the permafrost migration, the thermal anomalies the monitoring stations logged all winter. All of it reversed within 8 weeks of the fighting and hasn't returned. The power grid is gone, and it's not coming back in any form I'd recognize. The substations and the generation plants were in the warm zones, and that's where the dragons settled first. Communication is ham radio, short wave, and whatever local systems people have built out of what they have. Most of the country that's still inhabited is rural, northern, or both. The cities are theirs. I was asked last week whether the food supply is going to hold through winter. I don't forecast on this frequency, and I'm not going to start now. What I can tell you is that the growing season in the northern belt is proceeding normally, and the caloric output from the first plantings will be measurable by August. Those are the numbers I have. Next is the population count. The dragons remain. Current estimates from the stations that are still counting put the continental population above 4,000, and that number has been climbing since the first hatchlings were observed in February. They're breeding in every major burn corridor and fire zone from Alaska to the Gulf Coast. The hatchlings stay near the heat sources where the adults settled, and the adults haven't moved since December. Everywhere there's sustained heat, they're there. I want to be clear about what I mean when I say they don't look at you. They aren't domesticated. They don't respond to sound, to movement, to vehicles, to people. They're heat animals, and their behavior is entirely organized around heat, and that's all we've determined about them in 6 months of observation. Indifferent is the closest word I have for it. I'm going to read the resistance record because somebody should keep it. On March 14th, a joint air operation out of what remained of Ellsworth Air Force Base launched 12 sorties against a cluster of 7 dragons that had settled near Rapid City. The operation lasted one afternoon. All 12 aircraft were lost, 9 on the first pass. The dragons were drawn to the heat of the burning wreckage, and by the following morning there were 11 in the area instead of 7. On April 2nd, a ground-launched missile strike targeted a nesting site outside what used to be El Paso. The strike destroyed 2 adults and what the report called several juveniles. By nightfall, 40 dragons had converged on the launch site, drawn by the fires from the missiles, the burning vehicles, and the heat of the strike itself. The remaining military assets in the area were pulled back within hours. There have been no further operations since, and no plans for any that I'm aware of. The working rule is simpler than anything that came before it. Stay away from the warm places, keep your fires small and short, and live in the margins and the cool belts where there's nothing warm enough to hold them. Do that, and they don't notice you exist. It's not an arrangement, and I want to be precise about that. An arrangement takes 2 parties who are aware of each other. Weekly readings. Temperatures normal for June across all reporting zones. Skies clear, no new thermal events, no migration observed in any of the settled populations. Dragon count stable or rising in every corridor, and the breeding rates we recorded in the spring show no sign of slowing. The far north is quiet, and the monitoring stations above the 60th parallel report no activity, and the quiet up there is the same quiet it had before the thaw, but we're still here, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. Next week I'll be on 7.235 megahertz, same time, 8 p.m. If conditions shift before then, I'll put a notice on the emergency band at 14.3. Glover out.